Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Hey, are we?
Yeah,
What's
there we
up?
go.
Hey guys.
How's
You
it
know what's
going?
crazy is we didn't even talk about what we're going to talk about.
I know.
Damn, you
Yeah,
guys.
actually, damn it.
I'm not worried about
Turn
it.
it off.
No. Okay. I had something. And it was on Facebook and I just left it there because I was gonna come back to it. But remember how last week we were talking about but I just went to the page and it's gone. But we were talking about, when you scroll through Facebook and it gives you like these suggestions or whatever of just some random text and a picture and whatever. So I'm just gonna look to see if I can find it real quick because I just went back and it updated and it's like refresh
But
the
it's
page.
not necessarily from one of your friends. It's like a page that's
Right,
just
right,
like
right,
Facebook's
right, right.
promoting to
Facebook
you for some
started,
reason.
yeah,
Exactly.
Facebook
I'm getting a lot of
must have
stuff like that
switched.
now.
I
Yeah,
get
Yeah.
that stuff
Yeah,
all
you
the
can see the
time.
shift.
Yeah,
yeah.
and it sucks. I hate it actually. But um I'm gonna see, maybe this is the page.
They're
Uh
kind of turning it into like if you had Twitter but you weren't even logged in. And
yeah.
you're just seeing
Yeah.
random shit and you're like, what is this? Like, I don't care
Yeah.
about that.
No, I can't find it. Okay.
Well, just in
But it
time,
was
just in time for the
What was
election.
it? What,
so I'll
oh yeah.
just explain it real quick. Because what it was it was a, it was a the blurb was like something about this piece of feces that they found, this the oldest feces from a Viking that they found, a sick Viking. It's like the largest feces. It's 8 inches long and it's like it's fossilized. It's all this stuff and I'm reading it and I'm like, this is my type of fucking humor right here. And it's like, this has been valued at $39,000 for according to the New York Post. This guy who went to do the insurance is like, this is the most exciting excrement I've ever seen, and like it's just as rare as the crown jewels. Like it's like, and I'm like reading this, and I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if this is real or not. Like I have no fucking
Yeah,
clue.
yeah.
But like they have a
Oh
picture of
wow.
it. They have a picture of it, and like
Uh,
like when you have something in a museum and it's like really valuable, they have
The white gloves and they're like holding it.
pretty much it was like the plastic around the feces, like to hold it in place and everything. I'm like, what the fuck is this that I'm looking at? I was gonna share it. I was gonna share it. I was
No, I
gonna
love
go.
it. The algorithm's like, you like shit a lot, right?
Yeah,
It's like
exactly. They're like, this guy talks about shit all the fucking time.
he's always talking about it.
And
that's like that
yeah,
book the one Max was reading, which epic that Max is reading it at 7, but it's called The Chaos Machine. It's
mm,
like literally, it's just pumping fucking chaos into people's lives. Now you
Dude,
can
what's so
process it.
cool?
People can't. The average person can't.
What's so cool about the kids is like that point you just brought up. He's reading that book. Like it was just like we were in a car ride, and I had a whole bunch of books in my truck because I was moving things from out of one office to another, or whatever. And it was in there, and he didn't bring anything with him, so it was just like, what's that? Oh, that's cool. He's just reading it, and it's so cool because then he's like telling me about stuff in it, and he's like, I don't know if that's true or this or that or whatever, and I'm like, I mean, it's like an adult book, meaning like something you'd get up Barnes and Noble on the business section or some or whatever. And he's just like, we'll pick it up, and like when I was 7, I would just be bored.
mm.
Do you know what I mean?
I
I
don't even
wouldn't
know
have a
what I was doing at
solution to
7.
it.
What
Right?
grade is a 7-year-old? First grade?
Yeah, first, second grade.
Second, he'd probably be second, and his birthday's October, so he'd probably be in the between.
He'd be yeah, he'd be like, well, here in Florida, he'd be in first grade, or yeah, basically
He's
he'd
seven and a
just
half,
finished.
man.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing when I was 7. It wasn't
Dude,
that.
it's so crazy. I mean, you guys know it. Like, Max. It's like you're not talking to a fucking 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, you're
It's like
not
that.
talking to a 7-year-old. It's like what? And I see other 7-year-olds, and you're like, there's a big difference, man. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. I like that idea though, because I keep looking at the word chaos, right? Like with the chaos machine. And with going to the next level, how there's a certain amount of chaos within that. Because, like, for example, in a month, we're gonna have a new baby. Hey, Seminole
Hey.
Cruise. Hey, who else got that update? But we'll be having a new baby. And I'm just looking at in general, like I'm in Cabo right now, and I was like at a business event and just seeing there's a certain level of chaos where you can go to the next level. But it's cool because there's like a window where it feels kind of crazy, because there's like the firewalls and all that. But if you just direct yourself, you can use that. There's like these openings, and then you just direct yourself, and in each moment you keep moving forward. But I see how quickly the system can take when someone feels that pressure or that chaos, and it's like you have that window to go to the next level, or you have a wonderful opportunity to fucking time loop, and then you go back, and it's really cool. It's
Dude, that's a cool point.
yeah,
Because anytime you want something to change, there has to be chaos.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's like
Chaos, people.
I've been reading. Well, I've been reading the what is it called? History of Destiny. I think it's what like the actual PDF where you hear
I've heard
Bernard's
of
whole
Destiny.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should Google it.
No, no, don't Google it. Don't Google it, guys. Just I'll send you a link. Don't Google it.
Hilarious.
That'll bring chaos into someone's life. And so I'm reading the actual PDF because I've read bits and pieces of it over the years, but I was like, no, I'm gonna go like from the because I'm on like long plane rides, whatever.
Versus just listening to it, you mean?
No, because
Or we're talking about History of Destiny, not History of Mankind.
Yeah, no, not History of
Got it.
Mankind. And it's like a PDF where Bernard is basically interviewed sharing his story. But
Yeah.
it's really cool because he's explaining like resistance. So like if you're encountering a demon and if you're resisting it, it will resist you. Basically, if you're participating in that, it keeps it stuck. And he explains, he's like, it's the law of balance and the law of resistance are at play. So he's like, when you open yourself to it, you fuck with that equation and then the thing can't resist you. And the word he used though to describe how you can essentially transcend that holding pattern is a catalyst. I was like, wow, that's fucking awesome because I see how that is what it takes to go to the next level. I mean, that's why like our event we did last month or this whatever whenever it was Enter the 1% so powerful because it's a catalyst because people are out of their element, they're out of their comfort zone, they're just like and then it allows for you to make new decisions and then act in a different way when you go home. And that's where I've been looking at myself too. It's like, oh, where do I need to apply different pressure? Because sometimes if you're just like going, grinding, you're like pushing up against something versus if you could just take a step back for a moment, take a breath and look at, wait, what do I need to do differently here? That allows you to have those moments where you go to the next level. But there's that chaos. There's the emotional chaos. There's sometimes even like behavioral chaos that happens. But yeah, I've been looking at that like law of balance and how you can actually trap yourself at a certain level. And now I'm like, oh, I'm seeing like the next level of things. And it's so fun. So you can get
Dude, there's
lost in
so
it day to
much.
day because it's like, another day doing the thing over and over. But when you look at 6 months at a time or 12 months at a time, it's like, damn, I've changed. I've changed quite a bit. Sometimes you miss that in the day to day.
There's a lot in what you said. Like uh that point about the demons, for example, right?
Yeah.
The resistance point. Because I was thinking about this point I heard recently, something I was listening to or watching or reading from Bernard. I forget what it was, but it was something like this point about choosing peace within yourself. And people can spiritualize that, but if you take it from the perspective of whatever the thing is that you're trying to walk through, choose peace within it. Like don't resist it.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine it's a demon. And then I was thinking about, dude, all the people who are becoming Christian, Catholic, like Candace Owens, right? And she was saying, look at all the evil in the world, kind of. I'm like, oh, you're resisting evil. Like, because like you're gonna open yourself to a demon? Are you crazy? And it's like, it's not real. It's actually
so
just
interesting.
basically someone having a temper tantrum, essentially. That's all it is. And if you
Yeah.
open yourself up of like, you're not bothering me. Like, I forgive you, I forgive myself. Let's do forgiveness. Like, forgive yourself. I forgive you.
Yeah.
They can drop it.
Yeah.
So it's like you could take that with not like a literal demon, but with the demons that you're facing in your life.
Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
resisting it, do the forgiveness on it, equalize it, accept it, embrace it. Don't. And so even the word chaos, if we look at it, because I know you're using it in the way that people respond to that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I brought up I made a point of it a minute ago was you have to have chaos because chaos, for those of you out there who have read Fall, right, by Neil Stevenson, is a cool example because when Dodge goes into what's it called?
The metaverse
The-
thing.
yeah, whatever it's called. I
Yeah.
don't remember now. It's been a while.
Yeah.
The virtual place, whatever it's called, land, whatever he calls it. It's like it's this unformed. I just imagine it like this sort of like iridescent black nothingness, right? And it's
I saw
like
it as
unmolded.
like static, like,
Oh yeah,
like
no, yeah,
static
yeah, yeah.
noise.
That's actually how to describe it. It's like staticky, and
Yeah.
it's nothing. It's just like totally unformed. It's chaos. It's just like information all flowing, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's nothing formed. That's not a bad thing. And so
Yeah.
it's like people think chaos means something bad is happening, but
Yeah.
chaos means things are now in a state where they can change to something else. They could easily go back to the same. But when you study, like when I was in college, I studied chaos theory. I had this really cool professor, and he kind of like, we had a lot of conversations outside of the context of just class. So he would like recommend things, and I was like studying signal analysis with him, like just outside of school. And he was introducing me to, he actually took me to the bookstore and bought me this book, this big thick book called like Chaos Theory or something. And it's chaos theory and fractals. And you learn about, in chaotic systems, you have these, actually, let me pull it up. People would like this. Chaotic system. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here, that's exactly the image I was looking for. Why do you think they came up with the idea of the butterfly effect?
Are we about to watch a Mandelbot fractal zoom for our video visualizer?
Yeah.
It's,
high
just,
quality.
that's what this podcast is, actually.
Just getting it all
If
my
you watch it
random
long
tabs.
enough, it
Okay.
just pops out with us. Hey guys. Oh, cool. Oh, what the?
Oh, I
What
see.
the? You gotta explain
Oh.
this, Cameron. You're the math whiz here of the group. I've seen this image, but no one has ever explained this to me.
I've
If
not
you're
seen this,
listening to the
actually.
podcast, you better turn on the video and watch this because this is, I don't know how to put words to this.
Well,
I'm not going to give you the full mathematical, breakdown. I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson, okay? But I saw this thing the other day. Like they were talking about people start saying scientists found evidence of Dyson spheres out in space, and maybe there's aliens, right? And then I saw there was a video like being promoted of like Neil deGrasse Tyson like talking about it, and I'm like, he saw a Dyson sphere, and he was like thinking that they're talking about him. So he's like, I gotta chime in. It's like, no, Neil deGrasse Tyson, not Dyson. Anyways,
dude, what's so funny is yesterday I saw a video being promoted on Christine's YouTube. And it was a Neil deGrasse Tyson video. And I'm like, what, 6 million views? People still watch this shit? Like, what? And like,
Who knows? Who knows if that's who
I was just
knows?
making a
it
point.
could just be promoted. Actually, that's like, yeah, good.
I was just making a point of like, yo, who the fuck still listens to Neil deGrasse Tyson? Like, this doesn't even make sense.
I think there's still a lot of retards, but I think also people also want to watch it because he's like he's retarded and they want to hear.
Perhaps,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. When you listen to it now,
He
you're
had some
like,
show
what is he
on
even
like
saying?
Nova. I don't even know what Nova is.
He
but, you
did.
know,
He did.
like-
What's his faces?
He redid Cosmos, right?
Yeah.
Carl Sagan.
Like all fucking theory.
Yeah, he redid Carl Sagan. Okay, so check this out. So chaos theory. I'm just giving you this little point. This is not even the best picture, but anyways, like
Mid-Journey. Give me a way cooler fucking picture of chaos theory.
okay, dude, I'm about to blow your fucking mind. If you haven't seen this, I'm gonna blow your mind today. Okay,
Let's go.
chaos. It's not bad. Like building chaos is this negative thing because that's what we have learned, right?
Yeah.
Words, man. But I'm just gonna give you kind of like a sort of way of looking at it. You see this little yellow picture over here with this weird butterfly looking
I
thing?
even like the description at the bottom says chaos theory, the language of instability. That's cool.
Look at it like you're on one of these little yellow paths, and if you follow it, you fly up here, right? Right on the edge. But if you slightly moved over, you're like suddenly way over here going into the center. So I'm just saying that as an example of a slight difference in where you start can end up you're in a totally different place. Sure. This is why, and I'm going to come back to this in a second, but this is why it's so hard to predict the weather. because there's and so when you start studying chaos theory, you learn about Mandelbrot, and or it was Mandelbrot, and he was trying to predict. He was interested in the weather, and they were like trying to map it out. Like they have all these variables, and then they would have the variables start, and then it would run and give a simulation of like, okay, 10 days later, what's the variables going to be now? And I think the story is like, I don't know if it was on purpose or what it was. It was like they needed to go back and do it again or something, and they changed something slightly, or they put the information from here back into the beginning. I think that's what. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so you let's say you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G variables, and they all interact, and they change over time. So they all start as 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then they interact, and then they start changing variables. So like 5 days later, you can see they're going to be at this. Okay, so you take that and you put it back at the beginning, and you would think, what's it going to give you? Just so like you have starting point A, you let it run. It runs for 10 days. So at day 10, you can see the result of what the variables are now. But let's say you go back to day 5 and you take day 5 and you put that as starting point for B, and you let it run. Don't you think 5 days later it's going to have the same as what this one has on day 10?
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because the rules haven't changed. It's just you started with these, you got to day 5. If you put day 5 over here and you get to day 5 there, that's another 5 days. And then this one should just be after the next 5 days. Day 5 here should be day 10 here. They should match up, right? But when it's a chaotic system, they don't. They can radically be different. So like, imagine there's a billion air molecules in a given area, plus all the other air molecules, plus the whole Earth, plus all the forces of nature, all affecting each other. And if you're like, okay, I'm going to say it's these 100 particles I'm going to watch, and I think based on where they're at, there's going to be a thunderstorm tomorrow. But if even one of those things slightly changes a little bit, it could be like total crystal clear skies the next day, or something totally different. So it's really hard. The further out you get, it's really hard to predict where it's going, because it can change so radically by a slight change in any of these points. And there's so many variables. So it's very difficult to predict chaotic systems. So that's why the weather, people say like, oh, these weather people, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's like, it's hard to predict it after like 7 days, because it's kind of like all bets are off. Like it could be.
Are they using the new NVIDIA system?
No, they're not using the NVIDIA Sim Earth 2, where they map every thought pattern and every neuron and every cell in everyone's body.
So there's 2 things that I found to be really cool, like bricks to add to the brick wall, right? One is it's I forget what they call them, but it's like oscillators in nature. It's this idea of like sync or synchronization, or if you put like 100 metronomes all together and you start them all randomly, over time they will then start to synchronize because of the resonance.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And there's a cool book. I got it, I don't know, a month ago, and I've just been reading little bits and pieces of it. And it explains how oscillators will synchronize given the right, whatever, given the right conditions. But then also, there's this really cool, it's a thought experiment, but by the guy who actually came up with the idea of thought experiments. His name, he's some French dude, but it's a thought experiment called Buridan's donkey. I know, Drake, I think I told you about this like 6 months ago. It's really cool. Where it explains how
quiz.
There's a pop quiz. Okay. Okay, we're going into the metaverse. All right, close your eyes. Okay, so we're in the metaverse. It's a beautiful desert. Okay. And 100 feet to the left. So you got a donkey in the middle. Okay. Donkey's chilling there. Cameron, do you have donkeys yet?
How did the donkey get to the desert?
The donkey is there. All right.
Okay.
And to the left.
So the donkey is God.
The donkey's there. We don't know if the donkey's God.
Wait, Jesus rode into beat John the Baptist on a donkey.
Oh shit. Okay,
This was
so this donkey is still waiting for Jesus to come back.
You're jumping ahead. Okay. So
I'm just trying to do some chaos, man.
So to the left 200 feet, there's a stream. And to the right 200 feet, there's a patch of grass. Okay. And this donkey needs fucking water and grass, otherwise he's gonna die. Okay. This is a very sickly, tired donkey. He's been walking through the fucking desert. Okay. So 200 feet to the left is water, and 200 feet to the right is grass. And the algorithm of the donkey is going, I need water, I need food, I need water, I need food, and it's trapped. And the donkey's gonna fucking die if it can't shift. Thankfully, a little butterfly comes flying in and it brushes against the donkey's nose, and it's like, ah, and it reacts to that butterfly, right? Now he's 10 centimeters closer to the water. So he goes, okay, I'm going to the water. The point is, sometimes you'll have a system be stuck. But when you inject randomness into the system, it actually shakes everything up and it gets it going to the next level. And so, at a certain point, that donkey will take Jesus into the promised land. But for now, it's a very interesting thing to think about, because if you're ever stuck, sometimes you need to inject some randomness into the system. Ooh,
Which brings me to strange attractors. System values that get close enough to the attractor values remain close even if slightly disturbed. So you can have these, like, imagine those like loops, right? It's like, the idea in chaos theory is a slight disturbance, it can be wildly off, but there's also attractors, which is sort of like a gravity field, where it's like, I'm just using that as an analogy, where it's like, okay, you can disturb it, but because this attraction point is so strong, it will still eventually spiral back to that point.
It's like the fucking ego, or like the system.
So there's a lot of stability in chaos. These are dynamical systems. These are chaotic systems. There's a lot of stability inherently in chaotic systems also, or there can be. So like the people's whole understanding.
Revenge of the ego, isn't this what Revenge of the Ego is basically operating on? It's like you will veer back to that self-interest program, right, unless you practically build up your own attractor system of you as the breath, as life. But we're working with the fact that the system has been this fucking attractor. Now it's like, no, we're becoming the attractor as life.
And that's why the secret behind the secret is you can't just change your thinking by thinking.
Because you'll always be attracted
because it keeps
back
looping
to that
back
point.
into that.
Yeah, like what's creating your thinking is some program that's inside of you based on words. Dude, like I love doing this podcast with you guys. There's just so much.
And then people get trapped because there's so many people who go, oh, law of attraction. Oh yeah, I thought of law of attraction, and then I got a new job, and it was amazing. And so they get still trapped in that, because they're like, oh, my thinking did change it, but it's still going to the same fucking place. And it's like, no, that's why what we're doing here is just
okay,
different.
then do it again right now deliberately.
Exactly.
Well,
I just guessed right that time. Or like,
not how that works.
Right. Okay, you got a new job. It's like the person, I got a parking space. I'm like, cool. Like, I just drove to the back of that parking lot. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, what you know.
But
okay,
what's so cool though is then the attractor, the attractor that we're building, and it's like there's so many people now that I'm encountering where they're like, I'll like tell them this idea of like self-perfection, like, what? Like, I've never thought of it like that. I'm like, yeah, and it's like they're open to it.
Have you?
A tractor?
Tractors.
We're building tractors now.
Okay,
I don't have a tractor yet.
Have you ever heard of the Mandelbot set?
I just know that image of that thing, and
this thing?
It's like a formula. Yeah. This is what I was talking
about.
It's
a very simple. It's a very simple formula. What the hell? Can you look up the formula, Drake? That's being weird. It's like a super simple formula.
Loaded. 4K. Let's do it.
And it uses complex numbers.
I don't know what a complex number is. There, I said it. I'm the only one here.
Complex numbers. That's just with.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Drake. I don't know why I need to tell you.
It's just with imaginary numbers, right?
Yeah, it's imaginary numbers.
You remember complex numbers?
Imagine it. You just imagine it.
Yeah,
dude, I barely.
You know, they're not real. They're imaginary.
It's z sub n plus 1 equals z sub n squared plus c. That's the equation.
C for chaos.
Should we spend another 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour explaining all that, even though it's really fucking simple?
No.
It's a little equation. It's really not that complex. And it basically, you put a number in, you get a number out, you plot that on a graph. If you do that for all the numbers, then you get a graph, right?
Yeah.
We've graphed things before, right, class? Okay. A complex number is just, okay, Mitch,
Yeah.
Put you on the spot. Okay.
Okay.
Don't feel bad. Okay. I know you're not sitting in your basement studying fucking math all day.
I don't have my
No one has
calculator on
time.
me.
No one has time for that shit. What's the square root of 4?
2.
Okay. I Terrence,
Two.
you gotta talk. You gotta talk to
Well,
me.
yeah, fuck.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I don't know.
Okay. No, I wasn't trying to get you.
No,
Okay.
I know.
Square root of 4 is 2. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the square root of 1?
I don't fucking know. There is none.
What? Well, just
Oh,
one.
something over
Just-
1 or some. It's like some
See
subtraction.
how you just guessing. This is all everybody about math is like, something about this.
What is this?
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Everyone put in the comments. What is the square root of 1?
It's just 1,
I
right?
literally
Because
know
one
it's
times 1 is 1.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, sorry, I've been
Well,
putting
unless
like
you're Terrence
the Terrence Howard stuff. Yeah. Just kidding. I don't know.
Oh, he froze. He froze.
Oh man. Talk about a cliffhanger. This is like the end of a fucking Netflix episode. I don't know what's gonna happen. I have to stay watching it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Square root of 1 is
Okay,
1.
you froze. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I was just building all that up. So it's like we remember square roots. The square root of 9 is 3, right?
Yeah.
If I ask you what's the square root of 3, you probably can't think of it because there's no number you can think of, like a whole number that you
Is that
multiply
what
by
complex
itself.
numbers?
No,
Is that imagine? Oh, it is actually a number.
stop.
The real
Just-
number?
no, just
Just
okay. So the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 3, it's a number. You just can't think of what that number is because it's not a whole number that you can easily think of. It's some number,
Yeah.
but you just can't imagine it. Like in the sense of I should have said imagine. Okay, just pretend like I didn't say imagine. It's nothing to do with imaginary numbers.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with imaginary numbers. Okay,
Let me ask the almighty Google.
it's what we call an irrational number. Okay,
irrational.
but an imaginary number. Okay, what's the square root of -1 or -4 or any negative number? Like if I said the square root of 4 is 2, what's the square root of -4? You can't say it's 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. You can't say it's -2 because -2 times -2 is still +4.
Okay.
So again, it's a number, but you can't think of it because you can't think of a number that multiplied by itself would be negative. It's like because you're thinking whole numbers. You're thinking of numbers that are like just kind of common sense to you, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking either negative numbers, whole numbers. So they had to invent a whole new type of number called an imaginary number. It's just a number that this like it represents the square root of negative numbers, essentially.
Okay.
The square root
So
of
this
-1.
letter I,
Yeah.
the letter I is a number. It's not we're using the symbol of the letter I, but it's a number. It's called I, and it is the square root of -1. So I times I is -1.
Okay.
Right. And you can say, well, you can't just do that. I mean, well, yeah, you can because you just made numbers are made up, right? Well, what do I add to 5 to get 6? Like 1. What's 1? It's just a fucking symbol we made up and gave it a definition, right? So I is just a number, and it represents the square root of -1. You say, well, I can't imagine it, right? Maybe that's why they call it imaginary. I don't know, like, but I can't imagine a negative number either, right? Like, show me one. I can't. So if you take on a grid, okay, like your XY thing,
Yeah.
and on this one, you just put what we call real numbers, like positive, negative, all the numbers you can think of, right? That you can normally think of. And then on this one, instead of putting also, again, those same type of numbers like you normally would do, you just put all the imaginary numbers. So like I, 2 times I, 3 times I, -I, 2 times negative 2 times I. So this one's all the imaginary, this one's all the real numbers. And then every point on there would be a combination of both the real and an imaginary number because it would have a coordinate of a real number and an imaginary coordinate.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's just called the complex plane. So this graph here is not a normal graph that you're thinking of in school because both axes are not real numbers. One of them is a complex number. Sorry, is an imaginary. So you got to get something called a complex plane, so the real plane. That's the one you're used to in algebra, is the real plane, because they're just all real numbers. Okay. So it might sound complex, but if you broke down what I said, nothing of what I said is really that crazy.
Yeah,
okay?
it makes enough sense. Yeah.
It makes sense. Okay. So what you're seeing, you can't just get this with just normal numbers. You have to use complex. So when Drake was saying that thing, what was the formula again?
Z sub n plus 1 equals Z sub n squared plus C.
So this is, I think the Z is representing complex numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
I forget the exact details of it, but okay. So check this out. So if you graph that and you have now you can't just put one graph. It's not possible to see the whole thing. I mean, you can't really see any graph at once, but without going into all the details of how they create this graph, they're just using that formula. Okay. Now, when you graph a formula in school, you graph a parabola. Okay, that's a nice little shape, right? But check out what this fucking just little tiny say it one more time, Drake, for the people in the back.
Z sub n plus 1
So
equals
z with a little n plus 1 equals
Z sub n squared plus C.
C is the complex part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So it might sound a little bit complex, but if you think about it, it's just like a number squared plus another number equals a new number. It's really not that crazy, actually, right? You're not really getting into
I really liked when Cameron did this. It reminded me of, the pastor at church when they do the cross. It's like
Right.
this is our version of it.
Jesus died
Good
for your
lines.
sins, right?
Yeah.
He died. Every mistake you were going to make in math class in the future, Jesus already died for that.
Okay.
They should do that in
so
math class. I am, therefore I think, therefore I am. Okay, it's a joke, guys. Descartes came up with the coordinate plane. He said, "I think, therefore I am." So that's my joke. I have to
fucking
explain it.
genius,
All
Cameron.
right.
It's like
I know.
dad jokes when
All
your
right.
kids are geniuses.
Yes, exactly. Okay. All right. Check this out. So when you do all that, oh God, this music. I don't know why.
It even creates
Okay.
this acoustic background music.
Yeah, it also auto fucking generates music. Like, let me see if I can. Oh, it's gonna go fast enough. So it's
you
just
should play
zooming
Life
in.
the
It's
Sand.
just zooming in on a specific point. Okay. It's just choosing a certain point and then expanding and going further and further and further into the graph. If you go into any different point, it'll be totally different, like infinitely so. Okay, so this is just one little random spot. Here we go. Look, there's another version of the picture right there. Look at all these little versions of it. Okay, so far, okay, whatever. Now it's gonna zoom in. He keeps going. He's
Kinda like
going.
lightning.
Look at this.
Ooh.
Look, it keeps going. It's going. It's still going.
It's like
Okay, but where
imagine
are
you're
we?
skydiving.
Whoa, where are we? We're like in another universe now. See, look, this is a totally different picture. Look, from where we started.
Wow.
What is this? So let's go in here. And it's just going in one place. It's just zooming in infinite. Look, there's another version of it right there. Let's go into this little spot.
Oh,
Now, the
cool.
coloration is something I think that is done after the fact, but it's based on information in the graph. It's not like they're just randomly adding the color, but the color itself does not exist in the graph. But there is variation, so that's how they're getting it.
And it's like the
way.
Terrence Howard thing too, how he's like, there's no straight lines. Like
It's like, dude, wait, I want to go in there.
yeah, come on.
Look at this.
Yeah, it's really.
Oh,
I'm gonna zoom. I'm gonna speed it up. Let's go.
Yeah,
here we go.
Oh,
strap in.
Let's go. Wow. You should play Fate in the Sand in the background.
Yeah.
Brainwash everyone.
Look at this.
Yeah. It's just really cool.
Incredible.
Look, I'm just gonna click another one real quick.
Yeah. It looks like cells
hardest.
splitting or something.
Look at this. What did it say at the beginning? How many iterations? I didn't see it.
No, there's something blocking. We couldn't see it.
539 million iterations. So like plugging a number in for in that equation, solving it out, getting a value, plugging that back in, getting the next one, doing that 539 million times, and it plots these points. And then this is the depth, whatever the fuck that means. 5 to the 1300th power.
10 to the 1300th power.
Okay. Oh, 2x this one too. What? Oh, we're going out?
We're going in, babe. We're going in, buddy. It's like we're going
this
in.
Is in?
Here we go. Here we go. Whoa. Wait, what's this?
I feel like we're going out.
Where are we going? Here we go. What is happening?
The hardest trip.
Where are we going?
Reaction video. Oh, what? I'm seeing. Wow, we are going in.
Here we go.
He's still going.
It's like we're skydiving.
Ooh, boy.
That's really beautiful, though.
That is crazy.
You know, that kind of reminds me of
I want someone to paint that on my wallpaper.
You remember like Sagrada Familia? You know, that
Who?
That big church.
What the heck?
In,
Dude, imagine if you had a big digital 8K screen on your wall and it was just zooming in forever. and like calculating it and zooming in forever
That
on
would
the
be
map.
AI will be able to do
crazy.
this in like 6 months. It'll just never end.
But it reminds me of like
It
that.
looks like it's over,
What?
doesn't it? Doesn't it look like it's
Investment.
over?
Right.
You just went into this fold, right? So now we're trapped in this fold, right? Wait, there's a little universe inside here. Oh, where are we going? Oh, bye bye.
It's funny because now it looks
It still
like,
feels like I'm going out.
yeah, like you're
This is
zooming out
weird.
almost.
No,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah,
going
I'm
in
zooming.
closer. You're getting in closer to that thing, that
It's
little
like just
spot is
that.
expanding. Look, this thing goes on for 2 hours. Let's just kind of skip around. Look at this spiral galaxy we got going on here.
What?
Where are we at now? Look at that one.
This is like the mind is
Oh,
infinity
oh, how do we
thing.
get over here?
That is just
Whoa, wait, what is this place we're in? Look at
imagine the
this.
people who aren't seeing the visual listening to the shit. They're like,
They're just like,
what are they
oh,
watching? Or someone who's never seen this before too. I bet that like I used to watch this stuff for fun back in the day. When I was a degenerate.
yeah. Oh, I guess, oh man, it looks like Cam froze again. And like it's not
Oh,
just him that froze, it's also his screen that froze. It's all of it. Oh,
I
Just-
cannot
shit.
imitate this.
I'm
Oh,
just
there
gonna
we go.
look at this. Look at the scroll bar.
Yeah.
Just forever. Okay, so here's the point. Is it beautiful? I mean, some people might like it, some people don't care, right? But so if you're only listening for some reason, just go to look up like Mandelbrot hard zoom or something like that.
They're like, how do I even spell Mandelbrot?
Figure it out. Look it up in the dictionary.
Yeah, apparently that's who Nassim Taleb, where I learned a lot of this stuff from. He dedicated his book to Mandelbrot. I don't really know why, because it's a lot of outside my vocabulary stuff, but it's
Okay, but hear me out. Okay, so imagine looking at that. Imagine looking at the world and seeing all this complexity and being like, dude, a god must have created this. Like the god must have created this. And it's like, dude, look at what you can create with like a little tiny fucking equation.
Mhm.
Like just with that little
Right.
tiny equation, you can create some crazy fucking shit, like all kinds of patterns and things like that. Like, what if our reality is just based on some mathematics? And so the creator that created it, they're not actually that
They're not like
impressive,
omniscient.
actually. They're not really that impressive. Like, look at what you can do with a tiny little equation. So maybe they just understood some basic, like, or maybe to us it's not basic, but like to them, just some basic equations and stuff and like formulas and the way things work. And so if you listen to Resonant Seed, right? Oh, Destiny Book Club. Should we talk about that?
Yes.
I
Okay.
don't
What are you just
know
looking
I have
at?
to- I have to
Are you
go in-
watching like another podcast or something?
I don't know what-
Oh, you're zooming in, aren't you? You're Mandelbrot right now.
I have to go 5 minutes because I have to eat breakfast before I get on a plane.
Okay.
But you should definitely talk about the Destiny Book Club.
We
I
can
guess
Drake and I can zoom in later when you leave.
Yeah. But
We can go
what
hard
I
zoom.
what I think is really cool is like there's like this fundamental context that people see. You call like your worldview, right? And the two words that I have found to be awesome, of many words, right? But two words in particular is like order and chaos, because they're like two really fundamental parts of our universe. And if someone doesn't really look at those words and what they mean, you're kind of missing out, because they're like pretty important bricks in someone's brick wall. But when you can really redefine chaos and understand it more from it's like this kind of cool part of our reality, um, and order as well, where when you can like kind of merge the order and the chaos and work with both of them because your starting point is clear, becomes really helpful. It's almost like tools in your tool belt. Because if you get way too rigid, like some people, for example, right? Let's say someone in this group, they're like, they're wanting to stand up, they're wanting to push themselves and do more, but they don't even know how to use a fucking calendar. And they don't answer any of their emails. And like their life is just total fucking chaos. You're not going to be effective in the system at all. Like you're not going to be able to run a clubhouse. You're not going to be able to like do the fucking thing. But then if you're way too rigid too, like I used to more fall into this trap where I was like, oh, I have to like map out my day, by 15-minute chunks, and I map in when I eat lunch, and it's like there's too much order. And so it's finding this really like best for all way to be able to go into the extreme of either and to really work with it. But that has been a game changer for me, because I've seen how my natural pre-programming is much more like being rigid, being organized, like that kind of thing. And when I'm more embraced, to an extent, embraced being cool with the chaos, I find that there's like you can align with this. It's like it's like a physical flow. It's not like this weird mental flow state where you're like, oh yeah, I feel fucking good and my neurons are firing. It's like it's oh, I had so
If you don't
doing
resist the fucking emotional points
Mhm.
and you walk through them and you direct them, you get to that mental flow state.
Yeah,
It's
and
not an
like
artificial point. It's not an artificial like meditating to get to it. It's just like you don't resist the negative points. You direct them and then it creates more stability. It's what you
yeah,
do in the chaos when things are a little bit up in the air, whether you choose principle or you choose self-interest, which is just fear, whatever, to
yeah.
determine what's the new strange attractor that you're getting.
Well, and then because I see how like for example, using TechnoTutor, you're able to program in new information. And when you then act in accordance with that over time, how that accumulates, it's like I just have very clear examples for instance, when we went to Miami a month ago, it was like all of these moving parts. There's so much chaos, right? Traveling with a kid, traveling with a pregnant wife, having to get there on time, having to park the car, take the tram and the airport to like do all this stuff. And having these moments where in the past I would have gone into like, oh fuck, we're late, like and like go into that kind of negative, like, oh, I gotta control the situation to make sure we're there on time because if we fucking miss this flight, it's gonna be all this. And to remember and to realize it was like all this stuff I'd pre-programmed through using TT, all the process that I've done, me and Jess and everything, it was like just the coolest things would unfold. Like the people you would sit next to on the plane, or the how things would unfold, or how quickly we could get through the security line. And it was just like living in this physical flow that was just awesome because you start to see what's really possible when you're it's like that structural resonance alignment. That's what Bernard originally called DIP. And I'm excited because I'm seeing more and more people in the group too aligning with that. And then just you can kind of map that out over the next weeks and months and years to come. As long as we keep doing this and keep pushing ourselves to that next level, one, we can become way more capable because we don't have to participate with ourselves and in the world the same way we used to. But then also, as more people are looking for this, they're looking for solutions. And some people are, some people aren't. But you can then find them, and then we can be that like attractor, that strange attractor that can then
We
really
are
pull people in.
strange.
We're definitely strange.
We got the strange part easy.
Pretty attractive
You
too.
know, when you first
That's
brought
what I
up
try. And
strange
you're pretty
attractor,
attractive. I'm stranger attractive. Hey.
I tan well. Drake's got that attractive, voice. I'm just like, God damn.
oh,
I
thanks.
feel like
That's
I want
Drake
to.
Drake takes
I
Jake
just
takes big
wish
dumps.
I I just wish I could turn on the radio and just Drake's voice through the radio. You know how the radio's got a little bit of static noise
and
to
now
it, but
you
I
can
want to hear.
with AI. You can just take my voice and you can make it say
The
whatever
Drake
you
show.
want and play that all day for yourself.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
like a
yeah.
little
Someday we'll have
speaker I put in my
self-perfected
ear
radio,
at
so
night.
24 hours a day. We'll have like, this is late night with Drake, and he'll be like teaching us some fucking like our own version of a Bible study.
Like,
That's down the road. That's
you
down the
know
road.
what were you saying, Cam? When you listen to like those old audios, like you put a cassette under your pillow, and you're like, okay, you are confident. I am confident.
Awesome. So I have to go, but I know you guys. I've injected enough inputs into the system here where now the chaos will reign. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's
No,
gonna
we got
happen,
it
but
from here, Mitch. Now,
Mitch,
now we're gonna have the real podcast. Okay.
All right. Well,
Mitch, the unfortunate thing about you leaving is I don't get to show you all the videos that you missed this week. But
fuck.
Basically, it's
Well,
just
I can always.
Drake and I talking to ourselves about stuff we already talked about.
right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, all right, everyone. Well, buckle in and
We'll,
have fun.
we'll
It'll
see
be
you
like a
soon, Mitch.
it's all
Mandelbot
right. You
set.
can watch
Hang
later.
on.
Yeah, talk to you
Yeah,
later.
I
Bye.
guess. Yeah.
So,
See ya.
Cam, I got a video that you haven't seen yet, unless you've got
Oh,
something, already. But I've got a video that I don't think you've seen yet, which cracked me up. I sent it to Katie. I sent her like a couple of videos, right? And this is
ooh,
to
it cut out.
Katie. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I didn't cut out. You cut out.
it cut out. I said.
Uh-huh. Okay. let me just share this right now while it's up. Can you see it? Can you hear it?
Yeah, yeah. I can't hear it, but I can see it.
Oh, dang it. Hang on.
Yes, sir.
I gotta make it so you can hear it too.
That's fine.
But he's saying basically like, here, let me just share.
That's fine. Just good. Hey, you're showing sound, but you could just optimize it.
What the fuck? Jeez.
Come on, Grandpa.
I'm trying to figure out the damn the thing.
You know the thing.
Okay, so this is some parenting advice from Jordan Peterson. Okay.
100.
It's starting.
I know it's
How
gonna
to teach a baby to behave. So let's say you have a baby who's like crawling around. So he's making a beeline for the plants. So what do? You grab his leg and you hold on to it, not hard, and you're not angry. If you're angry when you're disciplining your child, you've waited too long. Grab his leg and you say no, and he'll struggle and keep moving, and you say no. And if you hold on long enough, he'll give up and then he'll cry. You let him go, he stops. Now, you might have to do that 10 times the first week when you decide to do this. Okay, and then what happens? Then you say no, and the kid stops and cries, but you don't have to touch them. No now works. No means if you keep doing that, something you do not want is going to happen to you with 100% certainty.
Okay, that was it.
Is that what the word no means? I've never heard that definition.
Bro, I saw this. And
I would have
like,
just reached over. I would have just grabbed his balls and just held on to him and just looked in his eyes. And I've just been like, no. I don't know why I had to grab his balls, but it's just whatever. That's what I want to do.
I saw this and it reminded me immediately of, remember that story of the elephant that gets chained?
No, 100%. Yeah.
And that story is told about like how to break an elephant's spirit.
You're breaking their will. Yeah. Hey, pull it back up real quick. Just the picture version. I don't need the audio.
Yeah. I got you.
I'm gonna show you something. There's two types of people in this world. Okay.
I got it. There you go.
There's two types of people. There's the first commenter. And then there's the second.
I think I like this.
I want to get to know New York nail artistry better.
Yeah.
Like when the most profound part you take away is that line of when you're angry. It's like that sounded good, and I agree with that part.
Yeah, that's the only good line that he had in there.
But then,
I just thought it was funny because, like, all right, he's one of these people that like he says some things that sound good, and we were kind of talking about this before the podcast. Like, there are people who, they're specialized in this one thing, and they're really good at this thing, and they're promoted in the system as like, hey, you're really great.
What is it that he's really good at? I'm just curious. What would you say?
Sounding smart. That's
okay. Go. I was wondering if you were going to say psychology, or I was like, yeah, speaking.
No,
anybody has some cool points, and I've definitely I like when he stood up against the trans phobic comment laws and stuff in Canada, and some cool points. But yeah, and actually I saw him in person in Houston.
I saw him in person as well,
like many years ago. Yeah, but like that is just straight up retarded. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's out of context. Maybe he was saying, what I'm about to say is totally the opposite of what I think.
Dude, so okay.
Let's look at his results as a parent.
I'm pretty sure his like daughter's like divorced or something like that.
Yeah, she has this young kid and got divorced like right away. So that's the result of your fucking parenting, dude.
Yeah, he
and like what, you didn't stand up to your daughter and be like, this is totally unacceptable. Like
you didn't just say no to her so she could understand with 100% certainty.
This is how you make your child like not smart.
Exactly. That's exactly what I saw that, and I was just like, dude, okay, if you want to make your child dumb, if you want to make them just obedient, okay. You want to make so that they can't think for themselves, they have to listen to your authority, like they just obey authority. Great. That's it.
Yeah, if they're crawling towards a knife that is like super razor sharp, and you know they're about to grab the knife blade,
Yeah.
or they're gonna grab it and stab them, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
grab
stab
their
you.
leg. Be like, hey,
Stab-
don't just hold. Like, why was the knife laying there?
Right. Like,
But it's like they're crawling towards the plant. Okay.
right.
First of all, choose something of no value to you. Choose something of arbitrary value.
Arbitrarily, just like they're crawling.
The moment
towards
your child starts to
No.
make a motion towards it, restrain them with full force and weight of your physical adult human body.
Yeah, it sounds psychopathic.
Restrain them until they cry.
It is actually psychopathic. Like, just the way that he describes it's like, dude, what? Like, if you were to do, okay, your wife is walking towards the door, you grab her leg, and you say,
See,
no.
the thing is, that's an adult, right? So you can't do that. But it would have been nice if your wife's dad had done that. So when you say no, they'll just stop in their tracks.
Dude,
What if you just both say no to each other? Do you both just not move? Like what? What are you exactly saying here? That is what the word no means. It means when that word is spoken, it means some force far greater than you, more powerful than you. Dude.
Okay.
The Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden.
Let's get into it. That's
the lesson. That's the lesson. God said no, you shouldn't have done it. What's your punishment? Eternal fucking suffering for all of history.
Yeah, there you go.
And then, can you do anything to change it? Nope. What can you do? Look, God's going to send his son, who's also God, to die, and that's going to change it.
Okay.
So I'm not involved in this process at all. Like, I didn't even know why
First of all, it was somebody, it wasn't even you. It was generations, apparently, upon generations upon generations upon generations of ancestors before who made this mistake, and you have got to pay just for being their offspring. Because I told them no, and then you came from their balls. So the no applies to you too, just so you know.
So also Jesus died for your sins, and you're forgiven for that.
Yeah.
But also nothing's changed.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be like if somebody was like, you did something wrong to somebody or whatever, and they were mad at you, and they were kind of like being a dick to you, and you were like, look, man, I'm really sorry. I realized what I did. I won't do it again. They're like, okay, I forgive you. And they're still being mean and mad to you, or mean, or they're still mad at you. You're like, well, I thought you forgave me. Like, I did.
I did, but I didn't forget.
You did it. I forgave you, but I didn't forget about it. I didn't forget about the anger and the trauma you caused.
I'm still pissed at you. Like, you didn't forgive them. Yeah.
Hold on.
So I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish because I got some other stuff too. I mean, there's so much this week. All right. The next, yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. I was just Sydney woke up and she was going to say hi. We stayed up super late last night.
Oh, she stayed up late with you, dude?
No, not. She didn't stay up as late as me, but they just up to like 1.
Do you want to showcase that or what?
Oh, the Suno thing.
Yeah,
I can.
Yeah.
Is there any context though? I don't think so.
Never mind. We'll just save it for like, hey, if you're listening to the music that's put out by OAE, there's a new song that's out, and it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go listen to it.
Yeah, that's it.
The other part of the context, I'll just tell that part, so you can go listen to the song. But anyways, with the new update to Suno, you can like upload stuff, anything. Obviously, they don't want you to upload copyrighted stuff that you don't own the rights to, and then you can have it create music from that. So I uploaded a song I had made literally 16 years ago, and I had no production skills. I was doing it on my computer using Reason, I never learned how to make songs. I just was doing it on my own, making it up, right? Like someone who taught themselves to draw, right? And this song 16 years later, I'm like, hey, this would be cool to put into here and test it out. So I put the music in, like a 60-second clip of it, and it had me singing on it, and it had all the music that I had produced using Suno, and maybe even some guitar I had recorded on there. And I wrote down all the lyrics that were in the song.
You said using Suno, but You meant
Yeah,
like,
whatever. I meant I did it. I put it into Suno. I don't know why
Yeah.
I said that. Anyway, so I put all this into Suno. I uploaded the actual sound file. Like I took the song, I put it into GarageBand, took a 60-second clip, exported that, gave that to Suno. So this isn't like I'm giving it the arrangement, you know, like the tracks. I'm giving it as
Right.
just a sound file. And yeah, I do want to show it. I think it'd be cool. Like at least
Okay.
the little first part, because then people
Okay.
can go listen to the whole song and that's fine, but then they'll have this context here.
Yeah.
But so you can kind of see like what this thing is able to do, man. It's just so nuts. Like so just for the context, so I wrote down all the lyrics. I listened to the song. I wrote down the lyrics that we had written. That was actually lyrics that Bernard had written. So I didn't write the lyrics myself, but I had put them in the song. So we did this thing 16 years ago when I started studying Destiny, where Bernard was writing all these lyrics and then putting them on the forum back then and being like, make music about it. And this will be music we can share as expressing the Destiny message and equality and oneness and so forth, right? So that's what these lyrics are. So I wrote them all down and I put it into Suno, into the lyrics. I gave it the style, and I just used basically the same style description as the other one you like. What is it called?
Which other one? I like?
So
I like
this,
a lot of
the first one I said you were like, yeah, I like this. It's like Janet Jackson kind
Oh
of
yeah,
style.
yeah. Love.
What can I remember the name
No,
of it?
not that one. What is it called?
Life After
I
Life.
listen to
Life-
every fucking
Life
one.
After
Yeah,
Life.
Life After
Life
Life.
After Life. So I used that description, except I changed some of it because I didn't want a female voice. So, anyways, and then I give it the sound file. So now it's like you're not only giving it a description, but you're giving it the sound as well. So what I want to play is just the first like maybe 20 seconds of my version, so you can hear. Okay, that's Cameron singing. Yeah, it's not like he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's not a good singer, but you know, whatever. But then we'll play. I gave it. I'm not gonna give you the. I'm not gonna play the whole thing of what I gave. It's like 60 seconds, but just understand I gave it more than what I'm gonna play.
So
I gave
can
it
I
that.
can I give my
Yes.
perspective?
Yes.
Like okay, all right.
Roast.
I am a serial hater of Cameron's music style choice, and his creative ability when it comes to him making music on his own. I have a
You know what it
serial
is?
hater.
Hold on. You know what it is? Here, no, let me just explain to everybody. Imagine you really like the Olympics
Really like
and
what?
like the Olympics.
Oh, okay.
And like you're a super fan of like, you know, Usain Bolt. I don't know. I'm sure he's not running anymore, but whoever the top thing is, right? You're like super into like the 400. Is that a thing?
Mhm.
And like, you know, everything about it. And like, you're like, you know, I guess it really translates to music. You know what I'm saying? Like you're an expert. Like you really, you know what you're fucking talking about. You're
I'm
not just
trying to
like
see
some
what you're doing.
random critic. You're not some random critic. Like, oh,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not fast. Like, you know, you're fucking talking about, right? And then you get an invitation to go to the Special Olympics. Okay. And you're watching these guys run. You're like, look, I know you're trying. And but you guys are really fucking slow. Okay. I mean, you know, you're okay. Like you're doing pretty good for what you're working with here, but
Oh shit.
that's basically Drake listening to music I made 16 years ago. Okay. I know it was creative, but I'm not pretending like I'm Usain Bolt.
That is
I
so
know
accurate.
I'm like the fastest retarded runner. in the
Oh my
Olympics.
goodness. Oh wow. That was a better description than I can give. That was that was great.
You know, I like to think of myself as musically.
Uh-huh.
Is it? Let me see. Is it? Hold on. What's that artist? It was. It's not De Gaulle. That De Gaulle was a French leader. Dang, I can't remember the name of the artist. I remember when I studied art history, there was this artist who started doing drawings. I think they were French, and it was like they were totally like not in any professional level of style. It was like very like just like they're not childish, but it was like yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. But he became a very famous artist, and people like it's like fine art now, but he was like totally like just kind of doing his own thing, and it wasn't like when you look at it, you're like that's not that impressive, but I'm sure there's some element to it that people are aware of or something. But it's kind of like that. Anyways, I wish I could remember his name is. That was De Gaulle, but it's not.
I don't know.
Anyways, that was a terrible explanation. The Special Olympics was way better.
That was what you need to take away from this.
But the more interesting part about this is I just obviously like this song that we made is like really good. The Suno version. But what's so cool about it is just I'm just pulling it up while I'm
Okay,
talking.
okay, yeah.
What's so cool about it is it's a song that I made. Like, yeah, I didn't write all the lyrics. I did write some of the lyrics, but most of it I didn't write myself. But it's a song that I made. Like, I produced it. I put it, you know, in the tracks, made all like every sound you hear, I made. And then I gave that to the AI, and it can take that and make it into something that's beyond my skill level, and even beyond, like, yeah, just way beyond what I can do. And it, like, to the point where when I played this for Drake earlier, he was like, "This is good." See, I know it's good because Drake was like, "This is good," right? And it's like, imagine you're watching this race and you're like, "Dude, these guys are really fast," and I'm like, "That guy's a retard," or maybe he was, but somehow he got some like AI enhancement to his. He got the fucking Neuralink. It's basically I got Neuralink, dude, and I'm like in the Olympics, like, whoa! I can't believe I'm here. But it's like my legs running, you know.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know how to get that across other than like, so that's why I want to play the first couple seconds of it for everybody, so they can be like, okay, that literally is Cameron made that song.
Yeah.
This isn't just I put the stuff in and the Suno made the music, like,
Right.
total. You know, I'm like, oh, this sounds so good. Like, it's nothing to do with me. This is like, I actually made this music from my own brain or whatever, my butt, perhaps, Drake. But then it takes it. You'll hear it's the same song, but then it just goes further with it, right? It makes it better.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so let me play the first little.
Yeah, play yours.
I don't know. I'll just play this. Okay, here we go. Can you hear it? Okay.
Yeah.
Fusion is what we are using.
Okay, so that's me singing.
We've been abusing life in our search to merge without.
We got some synths going on, some bass. The drums I programmed in Reason.
From universal creatures we have fallen. We are the angels cast from heaven. This side found on the other side of death.
Okay, so
Okay, that's
cool.
enough.
All right, that's enough. Okay, Drake, you got. I tortured him enough. All right. Let me.
That's very much like the music that I remember you creating and just like roasting you for, and like
Yeah, it was like, actually, I think it might have been the first one that I did with like doing the Destiny lyrics. Actually, I think that was the first one.
Okay, man, if I would have known back then, because I remember that I had found some like old music videos that went along with these songs, and I thought I could always access them because they were uploaded on some random channel, just random channel.
Are they
And I
not
was
there
like,
anymore?
huh? No, I can't find them anymore. Like I can't even find that channel.
But it's like, imagine it from the perspective of children, and they have no self-judgment.
Yeah, okay.
And they have no like concept of like, I'm trying to make it this way to be pleasing to others yet. Like, so that's why it's coming. That's why it is that way. You know,
yeah.
It's you know, yeah, like you're a physical adult, so you can do more than a child can, but it's not right. But that's not a justification. It's just an explanation, but it's a limitation.
Yeah.
Because no one would want to listen to it, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
What's cool is, let's say I do have this creative impulse and I have things I want to say, and I'm like, well, but maybe I want to actually make some people want to listen because I want to influence them to actually hear what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So the AI becomes a tool in that context, right? So let me pull that up.
Pull that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
And do what you did the time when you showed me, where it's just like, you play a little clip of yours again.
Yeah.
That
Just to show, like, oh no, because I know what it sounds like.
Right.
Caius is running around outside, banging on the door. He's going, Katie! Okay, so just to remind you, listen to the opening part. So this is I want you to be impressed with Suno. This is what's crazy.
Yeah, I hear Caius. I hear
going, Daddy. Probably Seneca left the door open over by the house.
Yeah.
Let me just text Katie. She may or may not be working. Hey, oh, she's coming. She's out there.
Okay. She can hear us. She's on the podcast.
Oh yeah, hey. Okay, so I'll play the very first little bit. Okay, so you get that.
Yeah.
All right. So again, I put this into the Suno. Okay,
Exact same.
exactly the same. Maybe probably produced a little better, but it's the same. Okay, I'll start over.
Fusion is what we are using. It's how we've been abusing life. With a search to merge with our deeper urge from universal creatures. We have fallen, we are the angels cast from heaven. This I found on the other side of death's door. Hear my message. I am here to record the unification of the man. As I am, the unification of the man. As I am, I made the same mistakes and lived a life that was fake. Before me, I listened to the words I sang on it. I would have lived a life over. As we stand at the end of time and the mercury rises all the time, to hold on to believe, as if it's the royal queen, will save Noah from the supreme. I was the silhouette of a man. Now I am life. Now I am. When all men stand together, free, one and equal, from the lies and secret minds, to see that life is what really binds. The unification of man.
All right, stop it, stop. We gotta listen to the rest on the road.
The unification.
Dude, that is, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah. Anyways, what do you?
But just the synths like that come in, it changes the song, like the complexity of this. It's like you know what it's
Yeah.
like. Okay, the way that I would describe it is, it's like you learn how to cook, right? But the only spice that you have really is just like salt, pepper, maybe, you know, and like you got this like you got this bland ass chicken. It's still white. There's no color to it at all. You know, versus like, you know, then you learn like, oh, if I put this herb in here, and it's just like little subtle herbs, and just like little, you know, okay, so you gave it this. I'm trying to make this kind of chicken recipe, whatever, and this AI is like your okay. Well, hey, you know, we're gonna add in this spice, just based on what you gave me, and you didn't even tell it basically what the recipe is. You just said, here's what I created. And the AI takes it and goes, I'm going to put this back on the stove and I'm going to make it fucking good. Like, and so you're like, it's my chicken, right?
Hold on. It's this meme right here. It's not the way you're saying, but it's this meme right here.
Uh-huh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
but of course, it just reads you the whole thing.
right.
But it's like you can still see the element of the thing that was in it also. Because like that
Yeah.
first part, you're like, it's literally, if I just played those, you'd be like, what is the same thing? It's going to
Yeah.
be the same. And that's what's interesting too, is when you look at, we're talking about the chaos aspect. You could start with something and go into two totally different areas and it still works. Caius isn't over here. Katie went and got him. Yeah, shut that door, please. Huh? I don't know. Katie must have got him. But it was also a point I wanted to share from the perspective of how much more advanced the AI is now. Because you couldn't do that. Like when we left to go to Miami last month, you couldn't do that.
Right. Yeah.
And then we come back and now there's this update because we kind of like hadn't been looking at it for a while. I'm like, whoa, there's a whole other level to this thing. Like, so imagine, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just take that in the context of like, people are talking about AI and the hype and everything. Like, okay, I'm basically done with the Darkesh Leopold Aschenberger interview.
Okay. I have maybe like halfway through maybe, but Katie's like, you gotta fucking finish it.
Dude,
I'm
there's
like, yeah,
so much content. So
yeah.
kind of the things that I wanted to bring up about this is like kind of the whole time Leopold is bringing up, hey, this is a national security like it's at the point where this is relevant to national security and government needs to step in. And
Okay, just real quick on that point. Everybody else, because I've been looking at the AI alignment stuff for a while, like we've been talking about it, and you see all these different guys, like Elliot,
yeah,
Eliezer, Kowski, this other guy, I forget his name, a bunch of people like that. But the way they speak, it's in a way where no one's listening
yeah,
except people who are like doomers.
yeah,
This guy's vocabulary
yeah, dude.
allows him to explain the same points in a way where it's like, oh yeah, we should take this seriously. Like it doesn't come across as a conspiracy theory or some crazy shit. It's like he's really able to articulate it. So I just want to add that of how he's able to do that.
And he's only like 20. We talked about this on the last podcast, but he's only like 20 years old, or 20 something years old anyway. And it's so funny because both of these guys are nerds, like nerds to the nth degree, where they start laughing and they're like,
Drake, are you talking about our podcast? Or are you you're still talking about the Leopold thing, right?
they're nerdier than us, bro. No, but
Possibly,
it's hilarious. But I didn't know, I didn't realize this until they discussed it, but they went to university together. Like they knew each other
Oh,
from
I didn't realize that.
way
Okay, I
back
haven't got
when.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so they actually have a relationship, and
That's why they're so, yeah. Okay.
yeah,
That makes
and
sense.
so there was an influence, like Leopold kind of influenced Darkesh to like kind of go down the path of the podcast. Not exactly, but he was basically like saying, hey man, you influenced me during this time, and it was really great. Anyway, going back to what Leopold's bringing up about AI and everything, is he saying this is a national security issue to the point where some government, and he was saying this before it was announced that the NSA, the head of the
I
NSA,
know. That's what was crazy. Yeah.
right,
Kind of weird
literally
timing.
just days before, he's saying like, hey, government needs to step in here and put some security measures in so that this technology doesn't end up in China or end up in one of the hands of our enemies who could then use it to take over the whole world, essentially. And what Darkesh is saying is he's basically like, well, okay, but why can't we just do this in the private sector? Like, what's going to make the government any better at doing this than in the private sector? And he's saying like, because basically what Darkesh is saying is like, I mean, okay, so China takes over, but like, who's to say that the people in our government aren't, going to abuse it or whatever, or that
Which
any
they will.
individual isn't. And Leopold's like, I'm not saying they're not going to abuse it. I'm not saying they're not going to. Anybody could abuse it, and it's just as likely that they're going to abuse it in our government as anywhere else. But at least there'll be security measures that will keep anybody else from having it. And he makes this point. His biggest point is government has the biggest guns. That's his big. He's basically saying they're the biggest bully, so let them have it.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
and they talk about a lot of other stuff as far as like,
But it's like, I was looking at this too, because I'm like, well, what else would you want? Like, okay, it's not ideal, but that more has to do with who's in government and how it's structured.
yeah,
But if we're like, no, government's so corrupt, blah blah blah, let's just let the corporations do it. Like, we're lost forever.
right.
So
Right.
keeping it within the state or the government is the only possibility that it can ever be reined in an effective way, because at least in theory, the government represents the will of the people.
Yeah,
The corporations do not.
yeah,
Not even in theory, they don't. Like they're their own individuals with their own free speech and free will and everything. Like at the very least, the government is supposed to be the will of the people. It's just, again, hey guys, maybe this whole time when we've been talking about why we need to go into politics, maybe it's starting to make some fucking sense now.
yeah. It's interesting as well because like he keeps basically bringing up the point, like Darkesh keeps bringing up the point of like, well, somebody in the government could run off and, bring this to China, just like somebody in a private corporation could do the same thing. And Leopold's like, okay, yeah, that's possible. But I mean, it's going to be a lot harder if you're in the government with the government clearance, like you're being watched.
At least
like,
there will be consequences. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You
And so and they're saying like, okay, but what if that slows down? Because with AI, it slowed down. And he's like, well, listen to this. Check this out. Even if we say the private company can do it, like you're a private contractor, but it has to be run through the government because of the security issues, that's still happening. So regardless of so on what spectrum do you want it to be? Do you like it? Like that's fine if you wanted to say, okay, OpenAI runs it, they have all the creative ideas, and then there's just some government official in there like just doing the checks of like, okay, but you can't do this, we have to do that. No, we're not going to allow you to keep this on your laptop, that stays here, that sort of thing. It's still being run through it's still being basically organized by the government essentially. And he's like, it's the same thing as like Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin's a private company technically, but they're actually just an arm of the government, really.
Yeah.
Right. And they go into like,
but do you want the decisions, at least in a theoretical sense, of what direction you go with certain things and make decision points that are made based on what's best for the shareholders of a corporation?
Right.
Or ostensibly anyways, what's the will of the people who elected the officials and so forth? And there is a possibility where we can elect new people.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, the elections, they're just scams and all that stuff. Well, but that's only because we're accepting it as that. And we're just kind of like allowing it. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to allow it. There's no law that says we have to allow it to be bullshit. Like it's just because no one's really taking full self-responsibility. Almost like because they're believing in some fucking higher power or something that's going to do it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only someone made a whole 1 hour 45-minute video the other day talking about this. Me.
Okay. Did somebody do that?
I did that. Yes.
I saw your video actually talking about God. That was a really good video.
Well, I did 3 videos on God this past week.
On God. On God.
I did one called Putting God into Context. I did one called Did God Create Poverty? And then I did one called God is Not a Frequency.
Oh, nice. Okay. No, I haven't seen the other 2. I only saw the first one. But either way.
And then I was like, dude, I'm just doing videos about God. I'm like, I think this is like my lane, actually, ironically.
I think God is calling me to make these videos.
No, I'm not getting calls.
Are you not getting that call?
No.
He just called me.
Oh, is that what that fucking WhatsApp message is about?
Yeah. Okay, so
I think God is my favorite topic to talk about.
I
mean, would you say that these AI systems are being intelligently designed?
To a certain extent. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes and no, though, right?
Yes and no, right?
But not because, like, you take the context of Ashenbrenner. It's like, is it really fully intelligently being designed? There's intelligence being applied.
Right. It's there's so much there.
Oh, you know what I did? I don't know if I sent it to you, but I'm assuming you watched some of the Stephen Meyer stuff.
Yeah.
That I sent.
Yeah.
Did I send you the one where he's talking to Jonathan Pago?
Yeah.
Did you send you that one?
Yeah, but I didn't watch it. But not yet.
Okay, that's fine. I just wasn't sure if I actually even sent it to you because I started listening to it. I'm like, because I've heard him, I've seen him kind of come up, and he was kind of connected with Jordan Peterson, and he's talking to Stephen Meyer. I want to ask you this: you're like, put yourself average person level.
Okay.
Mainstream thought process is what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm trying.
Is my music good? No, I'm kidding.
Put yourself in the Special Olympics.
No. Okay, just mainstream thought process.
Uh-huh.
What do you associate the term intelligent design with? Like, what are the things that come up for you? Because I asked Katie this. Okay, I guess what I meant was like, is it more on the side of rationality, reason, science, etc.? Is it more on the side of religious?
Yeah, definitely more on the side of like a religious type of thinking of like.
Is it on the side of like nut job, or is it just like reasonable religious? I'm just trying to see where you're.
Intelligent design, because I remember
Like just like you never thought it
No,
through, just
actually,
like what you were
okay.
impulsed with.
Hang on. No, because I remember having this conversation like years ago and saying to someone like, this thing has there's an intelligence behind it. There's an intelligent design here. And they asked me, it's like, so does that mean that you believe in God? Because you're saying it's an intelligent design, so it must be God. And I was like, uh, I didn't know how to answer that at that time because to me
Yeah.
it was like
Okay.
there is an intelligence, yeah, but I wouldn't call it God. Maybe I would say like more spiritual intelligence. That's how I was thinking of it at that time. But the way that they interpreted intelligent design was so clearly you mean God, you know, like with Christianity, etc. Right. Um, but yeah, I guess that's the way I think like
What I'm
somebody
trying to get, that is interesting, but I'm okay. So, because if I'm not just an average person, I'm also me, like in the sense of what I actually think, not just like assuming what other people think. I knew there was a level to which there's like the fundamentalist creationist type people, but then there's the intelligent design people, and they're not the same,
Mhm.
but there's still like some. It's almost like the mainstream scientists want you to think that they're kind of just lumped in the same basket. And he makes this distinction in one of the interviews. I think it was that Jonathan Pajot thing where he goes, I think it was his, where he was like, no, there's a difference between intelligent design and young earth creation.
Hang on, because I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with
Yeah.
this. I actually do, but let me just like I've got a thread of the thought pattern that I had, and it was like when somebody would say, like whenever I would hear that there was like a scientist who also believed in God, I'd be like, that doesn't add up to me.
Okay.
Like it like that's how I would think of it. It would be like, oh, well, there's clearly something wrong with that scientist, like they're biased or whatever.
Yeah, like how is they a scientist and they believe in God? Like,
Right. Okay, so that's what I would be impulse with is just like there's science, and then there's these weirdo scientists that are like believing God, but they clearly
like okay, what I'm saying is the guy who has like Noah's Ark museum with dinosaurs and Jesus and all this stuff.
yeah.
And when I would hear intelligent design, even though I know there's probably some more rational side to it, I'm kind of associating it in my mind with that.
Right.
So anybody who's out there really pushing intelligent design
Like
is
you just
probably
don't
more
want to
just
let
some
go
super.
of your
They're probably
bias.
but they're probably just some super fundamentalist type.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm just giving all that context of like this guy Stephen Meyer is not. I mean, he's definitely like believes in God and all that stuff, but he's not the Noah's Ark museum guy who's like, yes, the Earth was created 6,000 years ago, and everything in Genesis is true verbatim. He's like, yeah, I think the Earth is really fucking old, but there's definitely an intelligent designer, and he thinks it's God. I think maybe he's a Christian. I'm pretty sure he is.
Sure.
Fine, but
Did you know that there's like such a belief of like and I guess it's like within Christianity even there's this belief of, and it's obviously this is not all Christians, but there's a group of Christians who believe that God created uh the universe, the world, whatever, and then left. It's kind of like I would hear this theory as
that
like
like the
just some,
deist kind of stuff.
yeah, sort of like that. Like okay, yeah, like God created the world and then left, but I wouldn't hear it as a Christian sort of thinking because like always with the Christian sort of thinking is like, and he's got a plan and it's all this and whatever. But there's this idea of like, no, there was a designer, but that designer is no more. Either that designer died or they're like they've gone.
But when you hear that story, you're still trying to put it into the context of the same God as like the all powerful God. Like, is that same thing instead of it like maybe they were actually like more like maybe they would say like this, but it was like more like an alien that came and created stuff, and then
Sure. Yeah.
like, it's not about the importance of that creator being the reason in the guidance of your life and shit.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, clearly something created this, but they may not have the vocabulary to understand maybe what it could have been.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Katie wants to add to that Ashenbrenner discussion.
Okay, but we'll come back to that, Katie. Hang on just a second.
Well, I know she said it's really important. We can keep going. She's not here right now, but I just told her, yeah, if it's important, you can.
Oh, she's gonna come on. You mean?
I think so.
Okay, no, that's great.
Katie, if you're watching, you could just get on get on there right now, but
Yeah.
she's probably with the kids, so she's probably gonna switch with me for like 10 minutes. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
finish
fine,
what
that's
you're
fine.
thinking.
What I was gonna say is like to finish up this Stephen Meyer point, because I know what you're heading towards, is he basically says like, okay, yeah, there's the creationist fundamentalist thinking or whatever. I think it's young creationist is what it's called, right?
I think he called it young Earth creationists.
Young Earth creationists, where they're basically like the Earth's only 6,000 years old, and they're getting their reasoning from the biblical text. They're like saying, okay, this is what it says in the Bible, so therefore that's exactly what.
And they even say stuff. Carbon dating only goes back 6,000 years. So actually,
Right.
you know, like they try to make that argument.
Right. Versus what he's saying is like, well, I'm doing induction where I'm looking at, what is here, and okay, well then that must mean because if you look at one of the arguments that we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on the last podcast. I don't think so. But basically, where he's having that discussion with all those other mathematicians,
Yeah.
and
we didn't
they're
talk
talking,
about it.
and they're saying like, oh, if you actually just do the math, just very simple math, you realize that the possibility of this being created out of just like randomness, out of complete randomness, of like mutations, because that's what Darwinism is basically, which is what's taught in schools, which is okay, which is it's so fucking interesting if you think about it, because think of if creationism was taught in school, right? Which is what they fight for. They're like, it sounds just fucking crazy, right? To have like, oh yeah, you're gonna have your dinosaur riding whatever idea taught to my kids in school. That's just nonsense. But literally, Darwinism is the same extent of nonsense, except for we've all been impulsed to just accept that. Right?
There's elements that are practical within it, but
Yeah.
the overall, what is it? It's like you don't really know what Darwin was saying because you didn't read it, so you don't really understand. And so there's
second off, you can't read it. You don't know how to read it,
right? But it's like there's what Darwin thought and what he wrote, and then there's what everyone the system says. It's kind of like what Jesus said versus there's Christianity.
You know what it's like? It's sort of
you see
like
what I mean?
it's like because when I say you don't know how to read it, I want to make that really clear. It's like you can go to California and you can ride these massive fucking waves. Like a storm is coming, like here in off the coast of Florida. When a hurricane comes, that surfers go out there and they're like,
yeah,
woo, like 20-foot waves, 40-foot waves. Like it's a hurricane. And he's like, I'm riding the swell. And you're out there,
right? Because that's the only time you can get that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't really, we get like 3-4 foot waves here, if that, and it's like that's a good day, right? So, okay, you can ride a 3-4 foot wave, and you're calling that surfing, versus the guy who's like, I'm out there on a 40-foot fucking wave in the middle of a storm. The riptide is crazy. Like if you would die, you would fucking die. You can't hang.
Like imagine reading an autistic person who's super obsessed with the colors of beetles' wings, and you're reading their fucking diary.
Yeah.
That like, would you be able to process all of that? And would you even sit and read it for an hour? Like that's like when you're reading, I'm not trying to downplay his ability to articulate. I'm just saying it's some like detailed level shit of like his like thought process and going off on the Galapagos Islands or whatever it was and like seeing things. And he was like, a really focused person. It's not like when you read your history book or your fucking textbook from 8th grade Earth Science and they're telling you the description of Darwinism or some shit. That's not what he wrote.
That's like being in a wave pool. That's like, like you see the guy.
You're like, I'm surfing, mama.
You're like, you're in the wave pool.
Surfing.
Exactly. And you're on a boogie board and you're like,
You're like, okay, yeah.
That's what you get in school. But
then you also get the bigger picture that comes with that. That is really the point of it. Yeah. So it's kind of like this, you can't really articulate it, but it's impulsed into you with bits and pieces so that you have this whole picture that you never sat and formulated yourself.
Right.
And the picture that you have is evolution is the reason why we're not single-celled organisms anymore.
Right.
The reason why everything is the complexity of it is because of evolution, things evolving into more complex forms. But the driving factor of that is simply the concept that if a random change occurs, and let's say somehow I have this random mutation, or I copulate that child when its DNA is formed, there's a random mutation in there that gives it some advantage in the physical world where it will be better likely to pass on its offspring because it's going to mate, it's going to survive, it's going to be better at surviving. And it's just that mechanism alone, like some random mutation in the genetics occurs that makes that thing better likely to continue existing. And so it's going to more likely continue to exist and replicate than something else that doesn't have that advantage because it's in an environment where it gives that advantage.
Dude.
And that's the only mechanism. That's the entire thing. That's the whole game. And it's just a lot of random mutations producing these advantages. And the only selection process is that. Or you say?
I was just gonna say, like, that also lends to this idea of like viruses mutating and, you know, bacteria mutating and all this. And then you hear about like, oh, well, antibiotics don't work anymore because, you know, we have these super bugs and because they mutated and they got better, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Right. And
Yeah,
I'm
because
just
like probably somebody like Fauci's in there going,
right. Right. But I'm just looking at like, because you accept the mutation story, like all that just,
yeah.
you know, and so,
Right, exactly. It creates a worldview, like Mitch was saying earlier, where like certain things are possible that maybe aren't real, but it
right.
just fits into your worldview.
Right. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen on a virus level or whatever, but you know what it rules out is, or it kind of glosses over that whenever a mutation is made, the likelihood that that mutation will be beneficial is very low. Like the mutations are generally, you know, life-threatening mutations that hurt you rather than they're like improving your life or anything like that.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like you're far less, and you go through all the points, and it's so obvious. You're far less likely to get something beneficial if it's just randomness.
It's
and
like
so
if you,
imagine for every one possible benefit, you'd have to do a million negatives.
right. It's
So
like,
the likelihood that you get the positive in time to fucking even make a difference is so. It's probably even. It's actually, I think he said it was like 10 to the. What was, I forget the number. It was like some crazy fucking like 71 power or some shit, you know, like
that's
to
crazy.
one, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Now consider this. If you know you have code on a computer, right? That would be like if we did a mutation, we went through every single letter, you know, and every single symbol and just changed out every individual character in the code one by one, just like that. How long would it take to get to AI? Essentially, is what we're saying.
Exactly. Like, no, you have someone in there going like, no, go this way. No, go this way. No, go this way. And it's not just random. Like
Yeah.
it maybe seems random in the beginning, but it's very guided. It's very selective. There's an intelligence there doing the selecting. It's not just the random process doing the selecting.
Look at this. Look at this. Because they did that. Well, they had the AI training itself now on a lot of different things, right? And one of the early experiments that they did was they were trying to get this this robotic hand, to like be able to twirl a pen like this essentially, but like
Yeah.
um,
I think we probably talked about this years ago.
right. And they were saying like whenever a human would try to program this hand to a robotic hand to twirl a pen, the way that they would do it, it's like they would give it some rewards for doing this, for doing that, but they couldn't figure out how to do it. But then they got the AI to just, hey, let's see if you can do this. And they got it running simulations in AI, et cetera. So it's virtual, so they don't have to wait for the real-time feedback for it to happen. But they said it started rewarding things that humans generally wouldn't reward, and it was getting better results than humans at programming this thing. And when they looked at the code, they were like, what the fuck? Like, why would it go that direction? And so it was something that the humans, the programmers, couldn't understand, right? And so perhaps to them, it may have seemed random, right? But it was actually like it was following, oh, okay, I'm going here. I'm using this to basically it had a direction that it was going. It wasn't just random.
Who's setting up the goal in the first place?
Right. It's human.
And also, you can like, well, but let's see randomness, and it's randomly getting there and stuff. And it's like, who created the computers?
Also,
Who created the code? Who created the simulation environment? Like none of that just existed randomly.
But it's random to you. It would be like, okay,
it's not actually random at all.
It would be like this. I saw Wendy had posted that she was making cookies from fresh milled flour, right? And she's like, okay, so this is from the store-bought flour versus the fresh milled flour. The fresh milled flour spreads out a lot more, right? And the store-bought flour is, it looks like a normal cookie, whatever. And she's like, I'm gonna start doing some experiments so that I can get this fresh milled flour to, not spread out so much.
Interesting.
And it reminded me, because I would bake cookies all the fucking time. Like you talk about staying up late at night, just making music. I would stay up baking. Like that was my thing, right?
Damn.
I know.
Well, your cookies are pretty good though.
It was so much.
I'm not talking about Special Olympics. I'm talking about like.
But it was fun to me. Like, but you would do things like, okay, I'm gonna try this type of butter. I'm gonna try this type of flour. I'm gonna try this much sugar. You know what? I'm gonna substitute the sugar for honey, or I'm gonna substitute the brown sugar. I'm gonna, maybe if I reduce this, if I add a little more salt, and all those things to the average person may just seem like you're just doing random things. But I like, okay, so you added more flour this time. Why'd you do that?
Okay, if it was truly random, you'd be like, let me piss in it.
Right.
Let me throw it on the floor and then put it under the roof, or like, let me put it out in the garden, like it would be totally random. How many times would you have to do this for like it to suddenly one time you put a teaspoon of vanilla and a thing one time you put a gallon of vanilla, and that was like a million of the iterations. You put a gallon of vanilla, but you just changed the amount of salt.
Yeah. Exactly.
Another million of the iterations, you put a gallon of salt, but just you change this. Like there's no fucking, there has to be some selective intelligence there. Like you're basically illustrating.
Exactly.
It's a good way of looking at it. So you just see like, if it's just all random. And so that point you were making earlier about when the actual mathematicians who are not creationists, believing in God and all this stuff are looking at it, they're like, hey, there's not enough time. Like if you're saying, well, given enough time and a bunch of randomness, it could produce that. Yes, but in terms of the actual amount of time for us to go from point A to point B, there has not been enough time for that to be the driving mechanism. There's to the average person is like, oh, it's been billions of years, but you can't have it in billions of years. And it's like, how much has human beings evolved in 30,000 years or a million fucking years? Like, and so that's like a hundredth of a percent right there, and it hasn't even fucking changed at all. And they can't even find the point from here to.
That would be like, hang on, wait a minute. That would be like, technology is just evolving on its own. It's just evolving randomly,
right?
Just by random selection, mutating, and it just so happens to like.
The other thing he brought up, which I talked about in my last video I did on my YouTube channel, I'm also on Instagram. And I'm also on Facebook. The other point he brought up was, and this to me is like the most significant point. Okay, let's just go based on what we know in school, people can relate to. What's the most basic form of life?
Atom.
An atom?
Right? Like, I don't
think a scientist would say they're alive. I mean, like the average person. Yeah.
Okay, so the most basic, like maybe a bacteria or something like that, like.
Yeah, like literally a single-celled organism.
Yeah. Right.
Right, and then you have like the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes, right?
Yeah.
And the prokaryotes, I think I remember, is that they don't have like a nucleus surrounding the DNA.
Yeah.
It's just like the DNA is floating around in there.
Yeah.
So the most basic form of life is some single-celled organism, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, even things we don't even consider alive that seem to operate as if they're alive, we call those what?
Carbon-based. I don't know. Like they don't.
Viruses.
Oh, virus. No.
Right. Remember that? I know. I'm being vague, but
yeah.
Because we're like, oh, they're not really alive, but they also contain what?
DNA.
They still have DNA or RNA. Okay. where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah. Like, okay.
When you really think about it, for you to have a basic unit of something being alive, you need to have DNA.
Yeah,
How could
yeah,
that randomly evolve outside of the context of already something being alive for it to have any function in? That'd be like saying you can have engines, but no thing that you're trying. Like you had a cart being pulled by a horse, so you create an engine to put into it. You didn't just be
Yeah.
like, hey, look at this engine thing. Wonder
Yeah.
what I can do with it. Like you would have no reason to make the engine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There would be no function. You can't have a function without a purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
you can if it's random, but why would DNA just randomly start existing? And then why would it be selected for?
Yeah.
Because how would it form around it anything that can replicate it? So
Right.
you'd have to think the DNA is alive.
You know, what's okay. So
Show me the most basic unit of something that's alive that doesn't have DNA.
they I know they've done some experiments where they take like oxygen, they take, carbon and a bunch of other like minerals, elements, whatever, and they put it into uh like a vacuum sealed chamber, they heat it up, they introduce some electricity or whatever, and then they go in and they look and they're like, we find amino acids in here or some peptide chains or some shit like that, right? And they say like this is the beginning of life. And I don't know, like my first thought, the very first time that I heard this, which was many, many years ago, my very first thought was, well, how do we know that they didn't contaminate the box? Like, how do we know? Like that was my first thought. Like, how do we know that wasn't in there?
But also, how do we know? Okay, but look at it in the other context of, okay, a peptide chain. How many peptide chains are functional versus not functional?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm not disagreeing that random things bumping together over time can't stick together and produce like something.
Yeah.
But how many combinations of peptides can you have that actually make a functional? Like, there's no fucking way they did that. And then in like 20 experiments or 100 or 1,000 experiments, they got like functional amino acids.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It just, there's no fucking, because if that were the case, life would be way more complex. There would be a lot more shit. You know what I'm saying? If it was that fucking easy, because they didn't take a million years to do it. So you're saying like let's say they did it over 10 years.
Yeah.
So in 10 years, you can bump fucking these things together and you can get functional amino acids.
Yeah.
Like, why did it take a billion years to go from rocks to,
right?
Do you know what I mean? To like anything like that makes, so it seems to me more like they're like, look, it actually, you can get amino acids or something. And it's like, yeah, okay. That doesn't imply that therefore it would actually be able to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that. So okay, all of this relates to that one video that you sent of the elitism of basically like how democracy is undermined by the education system, right? Because what they were basically showing in that video is, hey,
which video is this?
This is the video that was basically showing people with a college education with a degree vote a certain way. Like if you want to, if you want to figure out how someone's going to vote, don't look at their income. Their income might give you like a 50-50 chance, right? They might vote this way, that way. But if you look at if they have a college degree or not, that gives you a 60% chance of being right, or at least, right? And it's I'm just bringing that up because it ties in really well with you went to school, you're being impulsed to think this certain way. You're being impulsed to believe in, Darwinism as evolution, as you're just here randomly. And so because you're here randomly, there's really no purpose for you, actually. In fact, it's just whatever, consumerism you want to get into, that's it. That's the purpose of your life, essentially.
And this is the most evolved thing. It's the most surviving, best possible thing out of all the random things. So you can't question it because it's like how you weren't there that night when that Christian was arguing about like solving poverty and shit. And it was like, he's literally just arguing for the system that because since the 1800s, people can read slightly better. Apparently there's more people reading at a fourth grade level. And I'm like, therefore capitalism, it's like there's always been poverty and we're getting, it's kind of like a Jordan Peterson argument. It's kind of like you see this argument out there. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just
yeah.
like the
Like,
basic
the world
like
is better than it was, you know. If you look at the percentage of people that are rich today, you know, there's so many more people making so much more money than there ever was. You should be happy. Crime is
things are
down.
actually better, you know,
Yeah.
like there's more people, like a person who's poor now is richer than a king in the 1800s or something. And it's like,
No, they're not.
yeah,
In
it's so dumb.
America, sure. But in like
But
look,
even in America, hold on. You're telling me some guy sitting in an apartment that he can barely afford and like is eating like fucking McDonald's and all that bullshit and has a TV
yeah.
and has electricity and a running toilet is living better than a king in the 1600s? Like,
yeah.
maybe just from the perspective that he has air conditioning and he, you know what I mean? But
He
like,
has air conditioning and a toilet. That's probably it.
it's like they're not having a good life.
No.
And
Definitely.
also maybe the king wasn't either, but like it's definitely, it's like this argument that's making it seem like everything's just fine.
You know, I think what's really not considered within that argument is, does a king have to plow his own field?
Right.
You know, like that's the biggest differentiator here is we're talking about somebody who does not have to work to live versus somebody who is toiling all fucking
It's like,
day.
imagine you've got the person toiling in the field, you got the king, he doesn't have a running toilet, he doesn't have electricity or anything, right? And then you just go to 2024 and you've got the person now, they're just like working at McDonald's, they have a phone, they have a running toilet, the king's got like fucking Bill Gates compound, and you're like, see, it's all better off. And you're like, what? Like, is it?
It doesn't make, it's not a logical argument, actually.
It's not. No. It's just again, but then Jordan Peterson, he's apparently somehow believes in God or something. So you could just see how that fits into that whole point of like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't want to actually change the system. That's really what it's about.
I'm ready for Katie if she's here.
Is Katie coming over here? Do you know if Katie's coming over?
I don't know.
I texted her. Would you go tell her like, hey, Cameron said it's if you want to come over, because I texted her, but I don't know if she.
Well, you're supposed to come out. But she's-
Oh, but then it's just Drake sitting on the phone. They're sitting waiting.
That's okay.
That's okay.
It's okay if you.
I can keep talking until she comes over.
Just talk to yourself for a bit.
Just talk to myself. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna share some videos then.
Okay,
I
hold
got
on.
some.
I'll be Katie will be back in a second. Actually, no, I'm gonna go run and get a transgender operation real quick. And I'll be
Oh, okay.
She
All
said-
right. We'll see you
she
later.
said-
Enjoy your operation.
She said that she said that she was waiting for you.
Okay, I didn't realize that. All right,
Waiting for you.
let's go. You come with me, and Drake's gonna talk to himself for a moment.
Okay. So while they're off doing that, I'm gonna share this video of Brett Weinstein on Patrick Bet David talking about AI, and I'm pretty sure I've got it at the right moment. I'm gonna just go back here real quick, and let me just make sure that I'm also
There's
sharing
no sound.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. See, that's the beauty of having my wife. All right. Is that hey Katie? I'm just gonna play this clip and chat a little bit. Glad to see.
But go to ugly place. Good, bad, ugly. Worst case, what happens?
Well-
Is it the fear that I actually want you to go there before I tell you what I think is the fear for some people.
Okay. First of all, we don't need ChatGPT to take us to the worst case scenario. We are already losing our capacity to understand the world we live in, to manage the tools that we are creating, to live in harmony with each other. We are losing those things in the present prior to ChatGPT. All of those problems get worse. This is like an accelerant, right? This is like you had a house fire and then you just threw gasoline on it, right? Now we have a raging house fire. So I don't know that this is or isn't the thing, but I do know it's not going to help. At this moment, we can't deal with this. And this is not the last time that's going to happen, by the way, right? We had a world, we had an internet, and then we dumped smartphones into it, and it was like an accelerant. It took the derangement that was arising out of natural algorithmic processes within the internet, and they got vastly worse when people were constantly confronted with their phone and the ability to interact in this way all the time. So we've seen that. We're going to see it again with fusion power. Fusion power, which I believe is the one technology that potentially bootstraps us out of the system we're in and into one that is sustainable. But if you just added it to the system tomorrow, if you read the paper tomorrow and turned out we'd accomplished scalable fusion, it would likely make things worse and not better because we're not ready for the world that it creates. So I don't know what the name of that problem is, but the we're not ready for that problem is a very serious one, and we can swap in one technology after another, and it will create different disasters.
What's the most dangerous?
Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to share. I know you wanted to get into Leopold Aschenbrenner, but
yeah, I didn't want. I want you guys to like talk about it. It's so good. There's so much in there. I heard you guys talking about the whole concept of it being the technology being controlled by the US and like by the government, not by private companies.
Yeah.
But that kind of like didn't get into the whole what we're trying to stop the CCP from having. So yeah, that interview is so good. I know most people won't listen to like 4 hours of it, but it's good all the way until the end. It just contains so much in it. So I just wanted to like get your feedback on it too, and then just have people hear that, because I know most people won't listen to it, and it's also very technical.
Yeah,
there's a lot of vocabulary in there that you really need to like understand, and it's easy to, and they also act like they're talking at like 2x speed.
Yeah,
so
they talk so fast. I had to slow it down. Like I'm used to listening to everything on 1.5 speed at the least, and they were talking so
you
fast.
can't do that.
No,
you can't
I got to slow this down.
with
This
this
is
one.
too much.
No, there were many times I had to go back and re-listen to something, because the weight of what they're saying in that interview on so many different points, like specifically in the beginning, just them talking about how a lot of the AI is being developed. Like, I don't think most people really process that there's only like 100 or so guys that really understand AI right now. Like there's 100 super high IQ guys who are super focused. And there was you guys were talking earlier about like reading Darwin's notebook and like seeing him being hyper focused on like one aspect of life. That's what these guys are doing with AI. So they really are considering a lot of AI in a vacuum. They're trying to create the very best thing that is something that they have focused their whole lives on. And a lot of these guys have been very rooted in reading sci-fi, and they have this whole vision of what they want to create. Like they want to create the very best technology, right? And I know you've read the Asimov series. So it's really cool to read the Asimov series, the robot series and the Foundation series, because it leads you into seeing the history of what we're creating right now, like the future history of what we're creating right now.
It's funny with that series because they're talking about psychohistory, right? Which is basically like, in essence, it's sort of like AI, where it's this thing that can predict things in the future, and if we use this, then we'll be great. We'll come into power. We'll have the empire. It'll be great, and we'll be able to spread technology and keep growing, because what was being described at that time was basically what was being described was a breakdown in the empire, and how technology is, it's running down because of politics, essentially, is what they were saying. Because of politics, everything's being run down, and no one's actually taking care of things. And it's interesting, looking at today's world, we have that where there is definitely this point of the way that things are run, our society is breaking down. You can see that, from the perspective of like, I don't know.
It's not considering the individual. It's not considering, it doesn't have a good value system. So there is automation in our
Would you say it's not
system.
considering the individual? Because I'm looking at like, the trans stuff.
I don't
You know?
I don't think it has an effective value. The trans stuff is not surprising from a transhuman perspective. So a lot of
That's
where
true.
we're going as a future movement, if you want to control the population more effectively and get them focused on things that doesn't have them unifying together and actually creating systems that are outside. If the system is designed currently to protect itself, right, and to keep itself running, which, think about it, if you give an AI certain programming and its starting point is you need to protect yourself at all costs, like you need to keep this running, and you explain and you say to the AI, like, this is important, or you say to the system, this is important, you need to keep yourself running, it's crucial to create the outcome we're trying to create. The outcome that's being programmed as the design goal at the beginning of our system is not designed to be what's best for everybody. So it's
Right.
not considering the individual effectively. It's just using individuals sort of like batteries. But in our current system, it's just like, you're going to go to school, you're going to be trained in a certain way, your whole sense of individuality, your whole sense of creativity, like every aspect of yourself that could do more is crushed fundamentally. And then every now and then you get these super high IQ genius people, like for example, that Auschenbrenner guy,
Yeah.
right? And even those guys, they're going to get sucked into, here, come focus on this thing that's going to make our system go exponentially more systematic.
Yeah.
And that's what AI is being programmed. And that's the part that I think can be missed when you're listening to the Auschenbrenner interview. It's so easy to go into like doom and gloom because he's really heavily focusing on, hey, look, this incredible intelligence is being created right now, in the sense of it's actually just the human mind. It's a mapping of the human mind, but it's taken without the limitations of getting emotional and fighting with each other. This is something like, for example, when he talks about agency, I think most people don't know what that means. I had the pleasure of reading a William Gibson sci-fi novel recently that it wasn't that great, but it introduced to me the concept of agency.
Okay.
And that allowed me to go a lot further in terms of, like, there's a central AI, essentially. And with that AI, it's able to clone itself and branch itself out into like 100 different sections of itself that can all go do tasks simultaneously.
Yeah.
And then reintegrate with the AI to the point where the AI, it's almost as if the AI in itself did all those things simultaneously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that concept of agency that the AI is going to be able to do more effectively than the human beings, because with human beings, we have so many people, but to get a person, like to have a coordinated group effort and then to have all the people go out and do the things that make sense and come back without some kind of emotional conflict or something like that, is very, very difficult to do. And that's why companies have HR, for example. They have to control a lot of the collaboration between people in the company. AI is not going to have a problem with that. So that's why he's saying in the interview, when these AIs have a level of agency, like when we can see they've developed a level of agency, we're going to have ASI, right?
Yeah.
Which is artificial super intelligence, which is way beyond what humans are able to do. And they're not that far off from this. This is like a 5 to 10 year timeline.
Yeah.
And again, listening to this, you can get scared, right? Because you're like, change. And he even says in that interview the whole time, like, we are about to enter a phase of chaos. So I thought it was so cool you guys were talking about chaos, not necessarily being a bad thing.
Yeah.
But that is the era that we are entering into in these next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Which is really interesting, because he talks about like the agency. He talks about specifically when you have 1 million AI researchers. And when he's talking about the AI researchers, he's not talking about actual people who are researching. He's talking about, like, you make an AI researcher out of AI to go and do all the AI research. And he's like, even if we could just do that, just that would be huge for the development of AI moving really quickly. And then he also talks about like how, because Darkesh is asking him, so you're going into funding this thing, but like it sounds like after it's, created the artificial super intelligence, because he's talking about the data centers that are being built right now are basically the data centers that are going to be for the artificial super intelligence. That people don't realize that now, but that was actually a really cool point. It's like, yeah, you're building it, you're thinking, you're creating this so that you can have, your AGI or whatever. But that's actually gonna, by the time that's completed, you'll realize, oh, artificial superintelligence is here, and that's what it's being used for, right? And he was saying that that's basically the reason why you want to keep it out of the hands of the CCP is because that's the greatest weapon, period. Which I'd like to get more into that as well. But just seeing that point of the AI researchers having 1 million or 1 billion AI researchers that are all AI, that are able to do what the best AI researcher today can do, but 1 million-fold, essentially, then gives you an advantage where you're doing things beyond where we can currently comprehend, beyond what we can currently see, even with our creative thinking of like what's possible. It's like just think about it as far as like because they were likening it a lot to the Manhattan Project and building like a nuclear bomb and all that.
Which just had a movie about it. So it's not surprising that we're I do want to get into like the okay, I want to talk about the doom point because I want people to be able to process their fear around all of AI coming.
What do you
and
see
then
as the
what do we
doom
do?
point?
Well, hold
Because-
on. But then,
yeah.
what do we do after? Okay, all right. AI is going to be here. It's going to come. Like it's inevitable. You've got trillions of dollars going into the research of it. You've got these guys with these top IQs, like all super hyper focusing on it. What do we do as an end result out of that as well? So, but we need to handle the fear because it's so easy for people to get sucked into. There's lots of doomers talking about AI, like people just super going into fear. Like really it's the fear of the chaos, which is what you guys brought up in the beginning. The fear of, okay, we're about to enter an era where, for example, like what you were talking about, AI can do research on itself. We don't even need the 150 IQ guys anymore. And in fact, they make a good point in that interview of, we don't need these guys. We're not going to take our time to go recruit every 150 IQ guy around the planet and train them on AI research and trying to get them going that way. It's like we're going to have it automated fairly soon with AI itself.
Yeah.
And that'll be easier. You don't have to deal with the emotional, like bipolar nature of like
and
people,
they were saying
right,
those
in the
guys
mind.
aren't necessarily that good for AI research.
Right.
Necessarily,
Yeah, well, because again, but think about it. Why? Because there's instability of the mind currently. And the challenge that we're facing also is that knowingness of this concept of alignment is so crucial. And I think a lot of people don't understand what that means either, right? But the concept that they're talking about with alignment in AI is aligning it to human values, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that the AI, and this is where the fear comes in, right? A lot of people think, okay, we're automating a lot of aspects of our environment. Now we're about to automate this massive amount of intelligence, which hasn't really been automated so far. All of the systems that we have in our current environment are not automated from the intelligence perspective. It still all requires a human input, right? And we have a system that punishes humans for not being in line with what the value system is of our particular country or something like that, or a conglomeration of countries, right? So, but there's a human element to it. Whereas we're about to enter a period of time where the AI has all this agency that it can just run and start to operate and make decisions on its own, right? And you're not even there's going to be a certain level where even the AI researchers we have now do not process what's going on. Oh, because he made a really good point in that interview, which I just think is so crucial to understand, right? Like for the longest time, we've had AI being programmed by input from humans going up vote, down vote, right? Like that's the system of control right now, or input, or even our ability to see what the AI is doing. It presents us with, here you go, here's the end result. Do you like it or not like it? And then you can kind of see. And on the AI research side, they're able to see it on every level of what the AI is doing. We tend on the consumer side to just see, oh, we put something in and all the stuff happens in the background and then we can upvote or downvote the output, right?
Yeah.
But for the researchers, they're seeing every level and able to upvote and downvote all that code.
Yeah.
And they're making a point of the way things are going exponentially quickly. The AI is doing so much. There's no way that a programmer can sit and look at all that code. You're going to need another AI to go in and check the code of the AI that you're working with. So
Yeah.
we're not going to have that upvote downvote system anymore. Like that's that we're already angling away with that.
Yeah.
So the alignment is now the issue. Because it used to be, well, I could check all the code and see what it's doing, and that's a level of alignment.
Yeah.
And now all of these people like Auschenbrenner and like Ilya, these guys who, for example, got fired from AI, the reason they got fired is they were on the alignment team
Yeah.
of making sure that the AI is in alignment with our general human values.
Okay,
right?
but
And they
I
got
thought-
fired. They
Yeah.
got fired because OpenAI is like, we're taking this in a different direction.
Yeah.
They haven't announced what that direction is, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, this is the doom. This is the stuff that people are afraid of. They're afraid of the automation without human input of an intelligence that is now going to direct a lot of our world, a lot of our system. And it's like, are we handing a system over to an intelligence, not realizing right now we have a system where we're depending on the human intelligence, a conglomeration of human intelligence that isn't necessarily programmed or pre-programmed with fundamental interest in each other. Like right now we have a system. I watched this great reel from somebody talking about how, like, for example, in America, it's like, it really is the winners win. Like you have a lot of elite families who've been making money for a really long time. And ultimately, this is the whole concept of, right, the top 10%, right? They can basically stay in the top 10% if they just pass the money down or like keep the money in their little circle. We already have a system similar to this point in place. It's just we don't have, the idea is, oh, well, there's a trust that humans are going to consider humans. And we don't even have a system currently in place where the humans are fundamentally considering other humans as human beings. They just see themselves as gods, okay? And everybody else is just like cattle, basically, essentially. So, yeah.
Okay, so part of the impression that I had gotten from Aschenbrenner was that alignment itself wasn't necessarily that big of a deal, because there's a part in the interview where he's like, yeah, alignment. I think he was like, kind of saying like, this issue is more important as far as the security issue of like keeping it within American or democratic hands, so to speak.
But what does he bring through from that? Why? Did you see why he's saying?
Because he's saying if it gets into the hands of the CCP, I'm not sure what exactly would be the like, what was it that was so bad about it?
Auschenbrenner is a really fascinating person, because by the end of the interview, he starts talking about how he grew up in Germany.
Yeah.
Right. He grew up in a very controlled environment from his perception, right? Where it's very stunted. It's very, and he gives all the reasons why from his perspective. And he says like the US
is like the Wild West. Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
So there's this whole perspective of like a lot of creativity is still encouraged and nourished in the United States.
Yeah.
And again, this is cool coming from somebody who's not from the US. And this is not a criticism fundamentally of, but there is a difference in our cultures, right? There and yes, in the US we can be loud. Right? But the point being that a lot of the fundamentally really cool AI research is happening in the US, whereas in China, it's being done with a mission, with a purpose, we're going to use this for a reason. It's very controlled. He even makes a point about how he had a friend who like spoke with this Chinese researcher at a conference. And the Chinese AI researcher said, yeah, I'm the top level guy that would be allowed at a conference like this. Everybody above me, they're not allowed to leave the country in China. The government will not let them leave. They're keeping a very close lockdown on what's going on with AI in China.
Yeah.
And in the US, we kind of have this free for all going on right now. Of course, we have recruited the top people here. But the point being, what is the value? He is essentially talking about alignment when he's saying that. I know he says from his alignment, he doesn't think that the alignment necessarily needs to be focused on in terms of what the AI is being programmed in. It's more about who's going to be able to control what he perceives is going to be the inevitable result of like weapons of mass destruction, that kind of thing. Which countries do we want to be in control of that?
Yeah.
But again, I like it because he brings in the history and the understanding of that's how it's kind of always been, though.
Yeah.
Like we have nuclear weapons right now, right? We have weapons right now, and we're putting it in the trust of, for
The
example, Joe Biden, Donald Trump,
Yeah.
this kind of like
Yeah.
this kind of perspective. But I think the point he's making is that, and this is why he doesn't have a lot of fear about it. It's just, it's going to increase exponentially when you have AI being able to like build and create a lot of this stuff and create the plans for it and do the mapping of these factories, these weapons, this research, all of this kind of stuff, when it can do it automated. Whereas humans are somewhat connected to physical reality and time. And the AI is only limited by how much energy you put in based on these data centers, right?
Yeah.
So from his perspective, the fear that he has is that China will have access to this information, build its data centers there, and will lose that democratic spark, right? That the US still holds like a piece of, right?
Yeah.
So regardless, like, again, I don't, the great value I see from listening to that interview is to understand how quickly we're moving to a point of automation, and how you can't just sit around and let yourself just be swept up in the wave of all of this.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, go ahead.
Because he makes the point of like, because Darkesh asked him like, okay, well, if AI is coming in the next 10 years or so, like, what's the point of like raising all the money? We're gonna have it basically. And he says, well, yeah, but like I think you're underestimating. There's going to be a period of time right after that, right after we get this AGR ASI, where there's going to be so many opportunities, like so many new things will spring up, and that will need direction. There will be people in place who can take advantage of those things, and it just kind of reminds me of like, okay, if you're at, people always imagine if I could go back in time and knowing what I know now, I could create a battery or something and make, or a light bulb and make millions of dollars or billions, or, establish myself. But then, okay, if you were actually in that time, growing up in that time, and you didn't know already how to create a light bulb or know already, how to create a battery or any of those things, you'd be fucked, right? And so the point that I'm making being that today we have a lot of people who can see something is coming. It's like being able to see there's a wave, out there, and it's making its way here. It's a huge, massive wave, but either you're not moving from that wave, like you're not gonna be able to escape, but like you don't have a surfboard, you don't know how to surf, you can't take advantage of this wave, you don't have a dam in place to take advantage of all the energy. Like, look at all this energy that's coming, it's gonna be massive for electricity, like, but you don't have a dam already in place, and so it's,
yeah, a lot of people think the dam is to go to college and study AI right now. It's like,
right, it's like,
did you not hear the part where he said, yeah, we're not even recruiting the top 150 IQ people because we're just going to automate it with AI. Here's the point that I see. Here's the dam. Here's the life raft that you can create for yourself, because there's so much potential with AI, with automation, with robotics, like all this era that we're about to enter into. You have to develop your own agency. If you don't do that, you're just going to get swept up in whatever thing the system is going to put forward to you. And I mean system as like the system of people that are currently working on this, that are hyper focused on, we've got to create this massive intelligence. Like, we've got to focus on this, and then we're going to be able to use it for lots of different things. And it's going to be inevitably, because you're not in government right now, it's inevitably going to be taken over by these governments in these different countries. And it's inevitably going to be used to these purposes. You're going to have difficulty seeing your ability to move within that.
Can you
And this is,
describe
go ahead.
or define rather developing your own agency for somebody listening. Like, okay, develop my own agency. Like, what do you mean?
Well, okay, just real quick. Like, another point from the Auschenbrenner interview is he basically shows how, like, he sees the pathway to World War III with all of this.
Mhm.
And he talks about the history of World War I, World War II. He's showing how we moved into these moments of intense conflict, right? And then the result of that, and how, like, the different countries' abilities to harness the weapons and the military that they had and the intelligence that they had allowed them to win in those scenarios. And it's the same with World War II. And then he's perceiving this being the point with World War III, right? So this is like the movement that we're making towards World War III. And the point being, if we don't, like, if you don't, hold on, the kids are knocking at the door. I'll be right back.
Okay, all right. I want to know about agency. Just gonna read some comments here. What interview are we talking about? Leopold Aschenbrenner and Darkesh on the Darkesh Patel podcast. The thumbnail for it is the $1 trillion clusters. What really surprised me that I hadn't considered the military implications of superintelligence, and they consider this AI development an arms race. I'm not saying that it actually is an arms race, but they're viewing it that way. Combine that with so many people I talk about this, and they say, well, that's life. This is the way things work. This is just going to happen. We just accept that. This is how it will be framed. Yeah, I see your back, Katie.
Yeah. So what do you do when there are, like, what do the people do, for example, who were just sucked into participating in World War I? Like, they were persuaded that this is an intense thing, that we have to participate in it. You don't have a choice. You are just a plebe. Like, you have to join the military. You have to do all these things, right? And you can kind of see us getting into a wave of that happening right now. Like in the US, we just changed it. There was a ruling by the House, which still has to pass the Senate, right? That all men are automatically entered into selective service, right? Between certain ages. So that just recently changed, right? It's not you sign up for selective service, you're automatically enrolled right now. You can see how they're impulsing a bunch, like the system is like, we're about to enter conflict. Here's some fears so that you'll feel as though, like, you'll feel patriotic. You'll feel like you want to participate, blah, 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 blah. Right? But what would it have taken to have people just say, no, we're not going to participate in this? When you get the accumulation of all of that energy and the conflict that's starting to build up. What if, a year before it came to a head, people were saying, I'm not going to participate? Because right now, to do World War III, and this was the same back then, if you had people with the agency, the ability to think effectively and reason effectively and see the patterns for what they are, and not go into an emotional state, because fear is always stemming from a point of not understanding what's going on. Right? But if you had the agency to be able to think effectively and look at all the different points and see for yourself what's going on, and then you can make the effective decision of, I'm not going to participate in that. Hold on.
I see where you're going with this stuff. I'll let you focus on that for just a moment.
Max needs paper. He has his documents that he needs to write. Max is studying war right now. We just got a great book called War is a Racket.
Dude, I saw that you got that book. And
yeah,
like,
I can't remember.
dude,
Was that suggested in the Auschenbrenner interview? I forget where I was listening to that.
Somebody else suggested this book though. Actually, no, you know what's interesting? I have a book, it's a marketing book here. And it's that book is referenced in the author's I guess preface.
Like notes.
Yeah, he just says like he says something about like I was reading the quote that he had and I was like, that sounds like it's from War is a Racket. And then I looked into the reference notes and it's like, yeah, it's from War is a Racket. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's awesome. But yeah, that book is I forgot who mentioned that book, but Cam sent me a Wikipedia article of the book recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the reason. Here's what's really cool. Max is naturally interested in the history of war because we talk a lot about like conflict and like emotions and like all these kinds of things and what can lead to the point where you want to like start a war like with your sister or what or with family or whatever the thing is. And so it's really fascinating to hear these guys like Auschenbrenner, who's actually an economist, by the way. He's not like a computer programmer. Maybe he also does programming, but he's an economist. So he's studied the stability of the economy of all these different countries, and he's considered one of the genius economists right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating because if you are effectively supporting kids to develop agency from a young age, and they don't have to go back like us as adults and correct a lot of things, and then they don't have the emotional traumas that are developed during learning, you can create really intelligent kids who have a level of agency because they're already naturally throughout their day.
Agency for us.
I did. It's that ability within yourself to go out and investigate a bunch of different things and bring it back into yourself and make effective decisions from an effective starting point about your life and about the movement that you're going to move forward. And most people don't have agency. You essentially just make decisions based on what other people are telling you, your doctor, your lawyer, your king, your president, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you're like, oh, I was a victim. Like World War II, just happened. I didn't, I just fought for the war. Like I didn't question or consider or have the intelligence to be able to see the patterns of what I was being pulled into, and then have that ability within myself to say, no, I'm not going to participate in this.
That was great.
I needed
because if you
and that was what I was, that book by William Gibson, The Point About Agency, it's actually a really good book, but there's a bunch of like liberal stuff being thrown into it to like kind of get like, I guess, liberal people to read it. I don't know what the point is, but it's really, when you have agency and you read a book like that, and then you can pull the information from it and get a good grasp on what's going on. Like we have to become equal on that level to the AI, because it's easy to see the AI as some intelligence that you're never going to get to. Instead of realizing like we are intelligent, we should be intelligently designing the AI to automate our system to be what's best. And that should be the value system that we're putting into the AI. And it's very easy to go, to see stuff like, for example, the Matrix, where you imagine like, oh man, the machines, they're going to go so far, they're just going to control everybody, and there's not going to be any choice you have in the matter anymore, and go into doom and gloom in yourself. And then what?
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a lot of people who go into that in this period of time, because we're at the beginning. And even Auschenbrenner is saying that most people do not understand what we're about to enter into when it comes to AI and the chaos it's going to create in the system. And why is it so crucial for you to develop your agency now? Develop your ability to process information now, because if you don't, you will get swept up into the emotion of all of this stuff, and you will see no pathway out.
Yeah.
And really, the pathway out isn't to go, well, let's hyper control AI. It's over now. Like you can't go there.
That cat is out of the bag.
Yes, it's over. Like somebody's going to keep developing the point, right? It's out there. But the point being, we need to change the human mind to be more effective. We need to change our human collaboration together to be focused on real fundamental human values, and actually considering every single child born into this world, making sure they get their needs met, because automation can support so much with that. It could be a tool to create a world that you want to see, that ensures that your child, your children, my children are all born knowing that they have opportunities for success. And yeah, actually, you know, there's this really good series I'm reading right now that Elon Musk recommended called the Culture series. There's a bunch of different books in it, but it kind of touches on this perspective of, you know, there's still parts missing from the culture that has used automation to make sure everything's best for everybody. But the main thing that it misses, okay, so essentially in these books, well, I won't go on all the details, but essentially in the books, there is a culture that has used automation and AI to make life great for every human being. The part that they missed, though, they did not change the human mind.
Okay.
They did not ensure that the individuals being born had the point of agency fundamentally.
Yeah.
It's like if you took everyone right now, you know, the idea was you didn't support with the human mind, you just like took everyone right now and made it so they could heal themselves and live forever. Like you're not fundamentally changing that point of why do you experience within yourself conflict? Why do you experience judgment towards other people? Why do you experience self-judgment? Why do you experience depression, anxiety? Why do you go into moods? It's not dealing with that part of it. And that's why the books are on a certain level dystopian, because even though you're handling so many things, you're not dealing with the human mind. So that has to be an aspect of when we're looking at creating an effective world for everyone, utilizing AI, utilizing automation, utilizing robotics, for example. Yes, we need to take care of everybody's basic needs, but we must deal with that ability of human beings to think and process information effectively so that they don't just go into the automated systems of like the emotional states within them that are not supporting them to work in collaboration with the other human beings around them. So that we develop human agency as a totality where people actually work together with each other and we're actually considering everyone, you know? So that's the side I see, where is we don't have a, it's important, for example, when you're listening to these people talk about AI, and they're kind of impulsing you to go into fear. The only thing that the fear, if you go into any point of fear, the only thing that should show you is that there are opportunities that you're missing in your day, in your week, in your month right now to support yourself and support other people around you to wake up. And even Aschenbrenner said that what's the key to all of this is to get more people to wake up to the reality of the thing we're entering into and not just get sucked into chaos and doom and gloom within it. Right. So that's what I'm glad you listened to that Aschenbrenner interview, because I thought that it handled it so well. And see, here's the thing. I know that this is possible in terms of every single person developing that point of agency for themselves, because I've done it on a very deep extent for myself. To the point where I can listen to that Aschenbrenner interview and understand what he's saying, and not just, like I said, go into fear, but see the pathway out, you know. And I can see that for a huge community of human beings who move themselves, you know. And it won't, and there's a lot of people in our world, like you were saying earlier, like in the US, things have seem nice, right? On a certain sense. People like to say we live like kings would have, you know. Now, but the reality is that, I mean, there's still half of the world's population right now is still living in a situation where they don't have clean water or sanitation. So the idea that we've progressed and that we've evolved when we could use this technology to support us to do that. But right now, that's not what's being focused on by these AI researchers. So the idea that you could just sit back and go, oh, well, it's going to be taken care of for me. You know, they're going to handle like making sure everybody's going to be just fine. That's not, if you listen to Aschenbrenner, that's not what they're focused on.
Right.
That's not what they're focused on. They just want to create the very best product. Right. So even OpenAI is looking at getting funding from Dubai, from all these people, or to build these data centers, because they just want to build the thing. They want to make ASI. They're just running in that direction. Right. So the idea that you can just sit back and wait is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling like you don't know what to do, right, because I'm just one little person who doesn't have billions of dollars behind me and I don't know what to do with myself, it's like you need to develop your information processing ability. That's what we do at Technotutor. That's what, I mean, I, for myself, and again, nobody else processes this because you can't see what the information that I process all the time, but over 10 years, I've been supporting myself to be able to process information at a much more effective rate so that I can see where I'm going with my life, you know, and so that I can support my kids to develop that from a young age from the beginning and not have all that trauma or whatever built in because you were kind of haphazardly educating them,
Yeah.
you know, like we have a lot of fun, we enjoy ourselves, but we're also developing persuasion skills, we're developing agency, we're developing just being able to process information every single day in an effective environment. And that's what each of us need to be doing now. If you're looking for something to do now, do that now. Don't wait a year. Don't wait any more days because the exponential growth of AI and the likelihood that you're just going to get sucked into it is increasing every single day.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I'm just looking at that point of like, you know, okay, because they also talk about how, well, okay, how is the universal basic income gonna work and everything? And it's like, not my problem. Not my problem, which is hilarious considering that he's an economist, right? It's hilarious considering those points of like, he's, and I don't know, do we end today like right here, right at this hour?
No,
or...
Cam wants to come back on. Hold on.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Thanks, Katie. But what I was saying is basically like, there's so many people who are not available. Hey, Cam, can you hear me or no? No, I don't think you can hear me yet. You'll hear me. You can hear me now. Okay, good. Do you know if we end like right now, like we start our next call, or do we still have like a few minutes?
30 minutes.
Okay. All right, cool. So
just real quick before you go further, yeah, I will just say a couple points, like because I was listening. While notice how Katie brought in all the points about the poverty, like literally the stuff we were talking about while she was like coming over here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like she brought up all the point of like we'll say like we live better than we did.
Yeah.
So I was just making that as a point of like, you see how we all like can see the same points,
right?
And then while when I went back to the house to be with the kids, I was sitting with Kaya, so we were like reading a book, but I was listening to the thing. So I'm listening to what she's saying. And then I'm like, as she's talking, I'm like, oh, let me come back later because here's some points I want to share on these points. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to get to that. And then she's talking and I'm like, okay, how about this point? And then, but I have to like stop the video to text.
Yeah.
Right. So I text it and I go back to the video and she's already saying the thing I was texting her.
Yeah.
Right. But I formulated it in a certain way. So I wanted to, I don't know if she said this part because there was some parts I wasn't able to hear, but I don't think so. I just want to get credit for it. But I said,
she already
I called
it.
It's a working title, but I call it Cope's alignment paradox.
Yeah, she didn't say that.
Good. Okay, it's mine. Although her last name's Cope too. Okay, so but I was looking at it like this because, and then it's like as I was texting this, I go back and she's literally saying not these words, but like already explaining the exact point I was trying to say. But I'll just read what I wrote. It says, and then I'll explain if necessary. The fact of needing to discuss aligning the AI to human values exists in direct proportion to humans not trusting that we as humans are already aligned to do what's best for humanity.
Yeah.
So then I said, therefore alignment can only happen when we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
we would trust that humans are aligned with human values and would automatically create things aligned with those values.
Yeah.
We don't trust the AI will be aligned because we know humans only care about making money. So it's not fear of AI, it's fear of other humans. And this is what she was basically saying, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so, and the point I really wanted to bring in, she kind of went into it, but I wanted to even make it more specific because she brought in the point about agency and aligning the mind. But I wanted to go a little bit even further because before she came over, we were kind of going into the intelligent design thing.
Mhm.
And did you hear the part? I mean, this is stuff we probably already knew about, but in the context of listening to some of these videos we were watching, he was talking about like the nanomachines inside like cells and stuff.
No, I didn't get to that part.
Like you can look this stuff up. Like the scientists have discovered literal machines inside the body, like inside cells.
Mm.
Like that. I mean, let's just find one real quick. Hold on. Nano machine in body images, videos.
Mandelbrot.
Nanobots.
Nanobot.
Nanobots.
Mando,
Nanobots.
Mandel nanobrot.
I've patented a new microcellular bratwurst delivery system. We inject nanobots into your cells to deliver you protein. In the
Did
most
you
efficient
hear
way.
on this Leopold interview, he talks about drones the size of a mosquito. And when he
Oh
brings
no, I
that
didn't hear
up,
that part yet.
dude, when he brings it up, it made me think of Diamond Age, you know, because
Oh yeah.
they have all those little
Diamond Age
tiny
is actually a
drones.
pretty cool book. I didn't really enjoy reading it so much, but it's got a lot of cool stuff in it.
Well, you're wrong. I mean,
I'm just
great.
not, it's so funny. I've read so much Neil Stevenson, and like the only one I really like loved was Snow Crash.
Oh,
Snow
Snow
Crash.
Crash.
I think he wrote Snow Crash, and then the Illuminati got to him. I'm just kidding.
Snow
All
Crash
right.
is like a
Check-
ADHD dream. Like
Check this out.
It's just this scene after this scene.
I didn't mean to put all that loud.
It's all
Oh,
good.
this. What is all this?
All right, we're looking at
So here's a little protein floating around. Look, okay, so here's this like molecule going through it. I think that's probably an RNA molecule.
that's probably, yeah, it's like reading the DNA. It looks
Oh,
like.
here's a good one.
Oh yeah. I've seen this. I've
I've seen
seen this
stuff like
before.
this, right?
Yeah.
But there's even more specific ones where it's like I don't know if they'll show it. The motors. This is probably just like an RNA. That's an RNA molecule.
Yeah. That's like it's doing the zipping and unzipping.
But he was talking about, and I don't have maybe there's not a video necessarily of those are obviously not real. They're just computer animations of the concepts. But he was explaining like there's these machines that are like literal motors with bushings, like all the different elements of a motor that have a specific purpose to be functioning as a motor, like inside a cell. Just like one example of many like tiny nano machines inside the cell.
Wow.
To where it's like there's no way that arose through a random process because for it to develop into a whole machine, think of all the mechanisms that have to be in place and the genes to express that.
Yeah.
You'd have to have that whole full expression because having half of that machine in the cell, why would that be selected?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm just looking at it like, because I tend to think of the human body as a machine. Like we have electrical impulses.
But it's like, it randomly happened. It's like, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And even within us, like the way that things, fluids flow or minerals flow or, different compounds flow within our body is very specific. Like there's a specific spot. Like I remember watching, I don't know if it was not that G spot.
The G factor. Sorry.
The G string. I remember watching these. I don't remember if it was on like Discovery Channel or what, but it would be these shows where they would take martial arts and they would identify, certain things that you'd see in movies. Like what's the actual possibility of that happening in real life? Like, could you actually stun somebody with a single punch? Those sorts of things. And one of the shows I remember, they were looking at, there's a specific spot, like kind of in the armpit or whatever. And if you punch into that spot, it will release a bunch of potassium or something like that into the bloodstream and make it so that you are literally stunned because the potassium like that is happening, in order for
it's like a polarization process. So like
exactly. And so there's just it's so saturated within you that there's no exchange that can be made because it's like, oh, okay, all this potassium is absorbed and then it's still here in the bloodstream. And so it takes a while before that actually
It's
filters
so out
out.
of balance.
Right. And then once that filters out, then it's like, okay, now we can return to normal, functioning essentially. And I guess I was just bringing that up because there are a lot of pieces to the human body that operate very much like as if we're building a robot. Like we're building right now, Tesla is building these Tesla bots. And it's interesting because they're looking at, okay, well, how many segments does a finger need to have for this to be effective? And they're looking at, okay, we got to make it walk, with at least some speed. You don't want it to be slow. And there's all these little things that are within that. And you could say, okay, well, it's just a bunch of wires and metal and everything. But actually, if you look at the makeup of the elements that are within the human body, there's a lot of metals. Calcium is a metal, isn't it? Like I'm not like talking crazy right now, right? Like calcium is a metal. So we have a metal frame within our bodies. Actually, we may not think of it like
because people
metals.
think metal means like shiny or something because you got
Right.
brainwashed by the education system. But like literally, potassium is a metal, sodium is a metal, calcium is a metal, magnesium is a metal.
Right. And so it's we tend to think of biology as separate or different from
like messy, not technological.
Yeah. And yet,
Dude, have you ever seen
behind it.
Existence?
Mm-mm.
It's a Cronenberg film. I think Cronenberg. I think it was. I don't know. They just this popped up in my mind where the guy it's a super weird trippy movie, and I think it's based on a David Lynch thing. Not David Lynch. Who wrote Naked Lunch? William S. Burroughs. I think it's sort of a long. Anyways, it's fucking weird. But there's this part where he's like assembling all these weird pieces of organic matter, and it's like a jawbone and like all these random things, and eventually he like assembles it into this weird like gun that looks like it's made of like meat and plant matter and shit and is able to shoot somebody with it. And it's like super weird, but it's like kind of makes me think of that, right? It's like it's actually technology. But okay. So yes, the human body is a machine, but because we're building robots and because we think we're the product of random evolution, and because we only know what we know, we think that, and we only know what we're taught, which is very limited. We think that our bodies are like, pretty cool, but, they're just here. And we can just make robots. I say collectively, think that we're just basically robots.
Okay,
but we're so much more than robots. Actually. Fundamentally, what's going on in there is so much, imagine a superhuman fucking crazy advanced million IQ alien built a robot, and that's a human body, versus 150, 60 IQ humans built a robot. They're not equivalent at all.
Yeah. There's okay.
And
no, because I'm looking at like that word robot, another word for that is automata, right? And so it's like
Jamiroquai has a great song called Automaton.
Who has it?
I think it's Automate. I think it's
Jamiroquai.
Automaton. Yeah, it's actually a cool song.
It's the same thing, automata.
The way he says it, he's British, so he says it in a certain way, and I like it.
This is another haphazard. Like,
actually, he might say automate. I don't want to play it because it's probably copyright. But
yeah.
It's a cool song.
But okay, but like, is that all we are? It's just automated machines. There's a lot of automated.
It's like, okay, imagine if you thought you were just like this random robot that kind of got produced, and what you see is what you get, and there's nothing hidden and deeper to it.
Yeah.
So like, if you saw a robot, and it's designed by humans, and they showed you and they told you the intent they put into it and how they made it, you would know there's nothing beyond that within the robot.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
But humans didn't design human bodies. We don't really understand everything about it. There's so much more hidden, like that Mandelbot Zoom.
Yeah.
Dude, podcast episode, Mandelbot. All right.
Oh, okay. All right. It's a good title. You get that, Christine? Hang on.
You got Howie Mandel. You got. Okay,
I get it. I wanted to bring this up before we run out of time.
Okay, sure.
because I remember I had a conversation with someone who works in the education system recently, and they work in without saying too much, they work in basically their teacher. The class that they teach is it's called course recovery. Okay, check this out. They're like, course recovery. Do you know what that means? I'm like, I don't know. It sounds like remediation. They're like, yes, it sort of is remediation, but what course recovery
teachers?
is a student fails a class that's considered a core course,
Okay.
or they get a D in it or whatever. So they have to go and make up that course for their GPA in order for them to graduate, right?
Okay.
So what they do is they come into this class, and he says, as a teacher, I don't teach anything. My job is, they say, hey, I got to take this test. Can you unlock the test for me? And it comes straight to their computer, right? And so he says, so I'm just looking at on the computer, like, oh, okay, this person, they're doing this test or whatever. Let me unlock that test for you. Boom. And then he says, they can actually take their entire course within a week and a half, 10 days, basically. So finish a semester.
They couldn't understand it in a whole year, but a week and a half, they could probably just get right through it.
If they just, they click through the videos.
You take the teacher out the classroom.
Yeah, exactly. They take the test, but he says, like, the way the test works is the test is, 10 questions, multiple choice. There's 4 choices. The choices stay the same. You can select your answers.
We always called it multiple guess.
Right. So basically, like, you select your answers, and then, oh, you got a 60% on this one, and you need a 70% to pass. Hey, could you check this test for me? Yeah. So you got 1 right, 2 right, 3 right, 4 right, and basically you tell them which ones you got wrong. So now they just go back and they select another one, because, all right, it wasn't A for number 6.
It's just like any online class where you can see, like, okay, got these wrong. Let me take it again and focus on that.
And you can retake it.
Yeah.
4 times. So
they're really just testing. Can you do that?
Literally. And
like, you know what I mean? But that's not worried about whether you understand. They're actually trying to figure out, can you at least do this? That's what we want you to be able to do. It's not about the information.
And what he was saying was, these kids, then they have the grade, so they can graduate.
Which
That's
is
literally all they care about.
It's not about, do they know it?
Exactly. It's just, okay, you can graduate technically. You got the grade. You did the course recovery.
So even if you thought the education system was the best thing and what it was, the information was the right way and all that, it's not even designed to actually do that. It's not designed to actually teach you the information that you think should be taught in it. It's just designed for you to graduate, so they can be like, we graduated somebody.
So now consider that within the context of, these are the kids in high school right now. So they're already entering the job market right now. And with what we were just talking about with AI and all of that, like, okay, that kid couldn't even pass high school without a lot of fucking help. Like, without basically getting a rubber stamp, like, there you go, you did it. And here's what this teacher told me. He said, what are parents celebrating when their kids graduate? They're not celebrating that they learned anything. They're celebrating that you survived high school. That's literally, because you put a book in front of that same child, and their reading ability is just like disappointing.
Special Olympics.
Yeah. No, not even. They don't even
It's
make
my
it
music
to the
production
Special
ability.
No, your Special Olympics is like, wow, okay, you actually attempted, like, remember I sent you that video, and it was they had a screenshot of a side-by-side of an 8th grader. They couldn't spell like simple words, and it was like, the word was like people, and the handwriting of the 8th grader looks like a 5-year-old, literally looks like a 5-year-old, and they're writing P-E-P-E-L, people. And it's like, you're in 8th grade? What? Are you kidding me? Anyway, I know we talk about that often, but it really, it really brings home that point that Katie was mentioning of like, how is that person supposed to have agency? You know,
Like we've been saying for a long time, we need people to get smart fast, collectively and individually, and like it ain't happening in the system.
right?
The other point I wanted to bring in about the robots and humans and all that is there's so much potential locked in the human body.
Yeah.
Like the Mandelbrot thing is a good example because you
Yeah.
can zoom in forever and you're like, wow, there's still more and more and more. And I know it's just a picture and it's nothing fundamentally new, but like with the human, it's like there's actually a lot locked into human bodies, nature, reality that we're not accessing. And if you imagine whether it's a god, because obviously evolution, the idea that it's natural selection, I think we've debunked it. It's fucking retarded. It was either God or some fucking super advanced alien. Okay, that's the only two options left. I think you know where we're going with this, but it's something super fucking advanced regardless, right? So there's a lot more in this robot body that's not being accessed, and it's actually fundamentally like a billion times superior to an AI. So this whole idea of super intelligence, and I thought of this because when Katie was saying like it's going to be better than humans, that's what Leopold's saying.
But yeah,
that's because you've taken Usain Bolt and you've trained him only to be good at the Special Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've hobbled his legs. You've when he was about to run towards that plant, you like grabbed his leg and you like held him down.
You told him no,
and you said no. So that's what's happened, and it hasn't been like you've actually developed the point. So the people who seem really cool, like they just seem super advanced than everybody else, they're like not even scratching the surface actually. So if you know how to program the human body effectively with information, that neural net, that AI, that fucking large language model inside there, whatever you want to call it, is way more fucking advanced than any AI we're ever gonna create.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not. So yes, the AI is gonna be smarter than us because we're not. It's like we're just giving up because we're all operating. See, now it's like everyone thought we was attacking God. I'm done with that. Now we're attacking the fucking evolutionist, atheist fucking retards. Okay. I know we were created. Come on, people.
Dude, okay.
But it's like there's
so if you have not watched Cameron's video, the first one, what was it called again? Something about
putting God into context.
Huh? Yeah, putting it all into context. Yeah.
Putting God into context.
Putting God into context. That's it. Yeah.
Go back and watch my three most recent videos.
Yeah. Go watch that. It's so good. It's so good. Especially because he's basically like, we're not picking on God. I know it sounds like it all of the time, right? but also it's only because
can't pick on
only because you're the most vocal retards.
But it's because people have an emotional bias and they're feeling something about what I'm saying, but it's like the thing I'm talking about isn't real, so how can I be attacking it?
You know what it is?
Anyways,
okay, Cam really like enjoys like, okay, you love this thing and it's dumb. I'm just gonna tear that apart.
It's not that okay, I do enjoy it, but it's not just for the sake of that. Right?
No, I know.
It's like
obviously.
Anyways,
obviously it's like to help you to see like, hey, you're still believing in Santa Claus. And you know,
it'd be like somebody like you're talking so much shit about Santa Claus as if you're upset about it as if Santa Claus is real. And I'm like, but I'm not attacking something real, so it's not an attack on that thing actually. It's an attack on the idea.
It's so interesting that like we're given Santa Claus that everyone can see is not real, you know? And yet it's like there's so many layers of like, and this is another Santa. You know what it's like? It's like Plato's allegory, the cave. And it's like, yeah, I've heard that. And it's like, okay, but you think that
so maybe you're doing it now? What are you talking about?
Right.
Dude, you would love the video I just did the other day, the most recent one. It's called God is not a frequency.
You don't have to sell me on that.
No, I know, but I brought this point in of like we think like the Sumerians, they were obviously retarded, like they just had a bunch of myths. Like clearly these ideas of these alien beings coming from outer space is retarded, they're just retarded. And I'm like, but these ancient Hebrew people who had a story about fucking God and Jesus and all that, they weren't retarded, even though
Yeah.
they were like also primitive like thousands of years ago. And I'm like, why is it that you can dismiss this one because it's primitive, but this other obviously primitive story you can't dismiss on the same grounds?
Okay, you know what's so funny is where did algebra come from? You know, like I'm just
Muslims.
exactly. But how are people taught, especially in the first world, in the US, I mean, in the Western world, how are we taught to think of Muslims? They're like some primitive, like, you know,
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
terrorist people, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
I definitely got the impulse with that in 2001, and and for the
Oh,
whole
it's when you
decade.
watch Space Odyssey? I don't remember that part, but the space Muslims. That's probably going to be a new Star Wars.
You didn't see the monkeys at the obelisk, like
Whoa. Okay, you can say that. I can't.
that's why I
Hold on.
just
Okay, hold on. I want to tie this point real quick.
yeah.
There's so much hidden potential locked into us, but we aren't. So the AI will be smarter than us only because of that, because we're not nurturing that part. If we were to nurture this part, which is what we are always talking about, you remove the mind bullshit, which is why you can't trust humans. You give the effective vocabulary. What we are capable, even just as individual human beings, just by existing in reality with an effective vocabulary and no mind bullshit, just that in itself will add so much to reality beyond. Like, the only thing these AIs can do is do shit that we can already do, just in a more automated, effective way.
Yeah.
It's not going to go beyond us in any way. It's like it'll always be limited by where we're at.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to make that point of like the real focus. Yeah, these people are going to do that. It's inevitable. It's happening. But it's not. There's no reason to have despair of like, well, it's just going to be smarter than us. There is room for us to get smarter. There is room for us to advance. There is room for us to evolve. We actually can evolve, but the evolution only works when it's directed by intelligence.
Yeah.
It's a myth that it's not. Like Richard Dawkins says, it's these things that appear to be intelligently designed that just the illusion of there's purpose to it. It's just actually random. It's like, oh, this is illusion of purpose, right? Like that's so ridiculous, right? So I just wanted to add that point because it's not about despair. It's also not sitting back and being like, okay, so I don't need to worry about it. No, this thing is going to get smarter than us and it's just going to control us.
Yeah.
But there is a way out. There is a way forward, but it has to be done.
Just thinking of like the illusion of purpose, like your asshole has an illusion of purpose of, getting, taking a shit. Like, okay.
Think about it. He's literally doing what the fucking Vedantists, non-dualists, Buddhists do, where they're like, this reality is an illusion. He's like, something that's obviously in your fucking face. He's like, that's an illusion. And then he's criticizing people for God.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, how can you believe in these delusions? It's like, you believe that a machine, like I made this other point in that video. If you stumbled upon some stone tablets with writing in it that was clearly like some language, would you be like, weird how like nature just randomly produced that?
Right. Like, come on.
Wouldn't you be like, clearly somebody fucking wrote that? Or you wouldn't just be like, huh, weird. Like, no, but when you look at fucking machine side human body, you're like, yeah, this is probably just random. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But you yourself are an intelligence analyst. It's just so that you can feel like it's so weird. It's like by not accepting a higher power, you become the higher power. But even by accepting the higher power, you also become the higher power in your mind. And like you never actually do the thing the higher power should be doing if it was actually a higher power. It's so fucking all backwards.
Yes. Okay. And that's the limitation right there. It's like as if somebody was holding the leg of your mind when you were a child and saying no to you. And then you've limited yourself within what is possible, like with your capabilities, actually. I know we're wrapping up right here, but let's just go ahead and wrap. But
let's just do it. Yeah.
Next time we should talk about Billy Carson because he's being promoted. And I just find that
it's actually cool. That's why I said God is not a frequency.
Yeah,
because he says that. That was the whole point of what I was.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know that.
But we can still talk about it. Yeah.
But I just no. I think we should talk about it and give it some time. But
do a real deal. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just saying he's being promoted right now, which is obvious. He was just on Joe Rogan. He was on the Andrew Schultz. He was on thumbs up from Zoom. He was on Patrick Bet David, and so many other, like, I'm seeing him pop up everywhere.
You see Cat Williams, Terrence Howard, now you got Billy Carson. Like, why is all that occurring? And Candace Owens, and you're like,
the
there's
trio
something.
of
The system is Yeah.
Negro intelligence. Yeah. Anyway, um, I just find it really fascinating that he's being promoted, and for whatever reason. But what that's leading to is a lot of people who are now able to question, okay, so I'm open to the possibility of there being aliens, which is really cool because now it's like, all right, now we can talk. Now we can talk of like, not necessarily going down the rabbit hole of like Area 51 and like, who cares about that?
like there's aliens walking around and they're going to be disclosed. Like, who gives a shit about that stuff?
Who cares?
Isn't it great though when you have the Destiny context? You don't have to get distracted by shit.
Right. Right.
Because you're
We
like,
can actually
okay,
talk
yeah, I
about
get
this.
the context of that. It's irrelevant. It's not the answer because it's just another form of a savior
Yeah.
in some form or another. Real quick point on that with the Billy Carson. When I first watched the interview in real time, all the comments were like, "Who is this guy? He's just talking a bunch of bullshit." This is what happens when you're confident, right?
Yeah, I see that on the clips, but on the actual
But then when I went and looked later, or maybe it was
Yeah.
just a difference. Yeah, it was like everyone's like, "Oh, this is so cool!" Like,
Right.
you know, and I was like, "Wow, interesting." So I don't know if it was just it was an interesting point. At
Yeah,
first, I'm like, "Oh,
definitely.
wow, everybody's actually a net," because I made a comment about it the other day, right?
Yeah.
But it was the
Definitely.
opposite when I looked at it the other day.
On the actual like full length interview, it's most people are like 3 hours of Billy Carson. You bet I'm sitting for this. You know, like very, very
But it
interesting.
wasn't like that initially, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Because I had it pulled up and then I
Yeah.
refreshed it like several days later to continue watching it,
Yeah.
and it was different. So I'm wondering how that. Anyways, it's a totally irrelevant point for the end of the podcast, but yeah. So all right,
You guys know
Zoom
the
you
things we
later.
usually
You know,
say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, go
We'll
call
see
hangouts.
you next week.
Uh,
Go listen to that song. It's a fucking
oh
great
yeah,
song.
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Listen to it. All right.
All right. Bye.
See you on the next one.